Aye.
Someone invited her.
Yeah, well, I can move that over. You said we.
Oh, I was just
I
trying
can
to
sit here.
get somewhere that was more
Did you invite her as
comfortable.
an analyst?
Who?
Thank you, everyone. We're officially starting the CD3 Land Use and Zoning Committee meeting. Today on the agenda, we're dealing with the City of Yes Economic Opportunities Proposal. We'll be allowing the public to speak if they have any comments. From there, we will go through different points in a resolution that we are hoping to submit. And for every section, we will give our affirmative or negative. We'll say, we support it or we don't support it. And I think we have quorum now, so we'll be able to vote on the final document when we adjourn the meeting. But I wanted to thank George for being on with us to answer any questions, to the extent that you can. And I think Francesca's with us from the city. And Connor?
She
Connor,
just
maybe.
wants to listen.
Okay, they're listening, they're just listening. They're not gonna be able to answer any questions at this point, but they're listening, so your feedback and comments are important, right? So, do we have anybody signed up to speak? Is there anybody in the chat that has signed up to speak?
Usually we'll just tell people to raise their Zoom hands.
All right, so if there are people on Zoom that would like to speak, please just raise your hand and then we'll call on you. And then we do have, after that, well, let's start there. Or do we have anyone who wants to speak?
Should we pass the minutes from last?
Yeah, maybe minutes and roll call.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry,
I was
I'm
trying to
kind
point
of
to the
like in
screen.
another universe. Sorry, that's what you were telling me? Just
Yeah,
stop
plus
me.
22.
I'm sorry to turn off the, I just gave you the two public comments.
But we do have people, right, that are signed up?
Yeah, I just wanted to
No,
know.
nobody.
Well, this will be the time for people to sign up then, all right. So, we're gonna do the minutes and then the roll call.
Yep.
And I wasn't here for the meeting?
Yeah, any objections to the minutes?
Yes, well, not an objection, just a clarification to you, John. So if this is, I think, my memory is sort of slow, so I'm gonna check with you. On number 5, up until commercial, my understanding was we said absolutely no on eating and drinking establishments. And it wasn't a no, it was, we don't know how to address it because we don't know what the housing policy is gonna come out. We don't want it to affect housing, so we can't.
Right.
We didn't know, but I don't think it was a direct no, I think it was like more of like an open-ended,
Yeah, I
we
mean,
don't know, whereas on the minutes it says we do not support.
I think we didn't support, I mean, in general, I don't think we supported it, particularly rooftop, I think we discussed.
Eating and drinking for sure was out.
Right.
We definitely said none of that. But I think we were, from what I recall, I just thought it depends on what the housing, if it conflicts with housing, it's an issue.
Yes, which it's basically, I think, but that's most cases, right?
But we don't know what the housing complaint is gonna come out. as.
No, but we know that if they do as of right, upper floor commercial, then it's probably gonna affect housing. Even actually George put.
But those are the minutes we're talking about.
Yeah.
right? And we're
Yeah.
really, so we can't change our opinion now. We can only clarify what the intent of the
Yeah,
minutes
no,
is.
no, that's what I'm
right?
trying to do. Yeah, I understood it slightly differently, maybe than,
All right, was there anybody else
I
here too? So maybe that may corroborate that, or do you feel like
I think it'll make more sense when we go through the resolution, because
Okay,
basically what
then maybe it'll
happens
show up
is
there in a way that feels better for you.
they're gonna, in a lot of the buildings with the C1,
Like
C2
more reflective,
overlay,
yeah.
they're gonna maximize the commercial FAR, basically. Currently, it's just ground floor, right?
right,
So they want to maximize it, so it's gonna affect housing.
yeah, okay, or maybe put a caveat on there. No, because it affects housing.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I think it'd be good for them to give us, to give them a reason.
All right, so just do the roll
I've got
call really
reasons.
quickly.
All right, Damaris Reyes,
Here,
John Fout, here. Hold on, it's not, why is this?
we can fix it.
Okay. Ariadna.
Here.
Alistair is here. Herman. Absent. Trevor is present. Laura. Absent. Jaylene. Absent. Sandra. Absent. Steve is present. Megan.
Here.
She's a terrible and Anisha.
Not present.
All right.
Okay. And so, was that the only question for the minutes? Is there another question or any other clarification?
About the process, but we can go into it now.
All right, so we'll talk about the process and just, let's finish with the minutes. Any other questions? So do we have, an affirmative vote on the minutes? We're good, right?
We're good.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Trevor?
On the step 2, just for clarification, we vote yes or no in the section. Are we doing a resolution in addition, or does a resolution replace the yes, no?
So they provided us with a form to use as a sample, right? And in each section, you can write your comments and you can say yes or no. Instead, because the form that we got was difficult to navigate for whatever setup reasons, what we did was put it in a resolution form, outlining each point and clearly saying in each point that we support or we don't support, and then we give comments.
Because yes, no is a little.
Yeah, I would,
Yes.
my comment on that was, I don't like the yes/no format because a lot of.
Yeah,
But it's what the city's asking
commentary.
for. It's what
I
they're
know,
asking for.
it's actually, it's even hard to write a resolution that way. I mean, I wrote a
Yeah.
resolution, but some people would.
Yeah, so-
And it's hard because you don't want to say, right, no, because you know they're probably going to do it anyway.
Well, sometimes you do want to say no.
No, I know.
No, but some might
No, I know I wanna
be,
say
you know, like an SLA resolution.
No less.
It's yes with these stipulations, you know?
That's what we'll
This is-
say. I mean, it'll be-
I wanna just bring us back, so this is the way that what they want, but what we've actually done is it says support or not support, so it's a little softer than a yes or a no. If people feel strongly about that, I don't know if the city's gonna come back and say, you must say yes and it must say no. But in the resolution, it's written in the format of we support or we don't support, and these are the reasons why.
Well, that's the way I wrote it.
Right.
But I didn't want to say yes or no for the committee. So I think it's actually okay to say yes or no and then explain either way.
Okay, that's
I think
fine.
that's fine, but I mean, I can't say that for the committee, so.
We'll take
Well-
both options.
Well,
Yes and no, to put there.
in either case, we interpreted the comments, the minutes to put something draft together so that, you know, we'd be here for 3 days trying to write an 18-point resolution. And so there are some suggestions in the sections about whether to support or not. But as we get to each section, we can redetermine if that's what we want to do and if there's something that is missing, but we gotta at least begin that process. So do you have, where is it? You have it there?
This is my comments on it, but I have it on the.
All right,
screen.
because I thought Susan was gonna make copies for us.
I could also explain a little bit more, if you want me to, about how it was sort of put together quickly.
You can do that while we find, we
Okay.
need to get everybody a copy though.
That's fine.
so-
And did that include did you get the one that has Andrea's comment she added? I didn't see that.
So while John goes through a little bit more, give us a little more detail, Carl's gonna get us all a copy, so that way we can go through it together. And I think it's much easier to follow something that's written than to hear
Yeah.
what we're saying.
And it's hard to
Okay.
read on the screen.
And so then we'll try to get through those points quickly. We'll give, how about for a process after each point? If there are questions and we wanna give or ask George something, or if we wanna see if George feels like we should be clearer, or if he has any other recommendations that we might wanna consider. So we'll do it that way. And we don't have any speakers, right?
No, I don't see any hands raised, so
Okay.
that's good.
So if people join us and they want to, I'll say it periodically in case there are a few folks, because sometimes people join late, I wouldn't mind. get folks, hearing from the public, I think it's important.
Yeah, do you want to share, should we share a screen?
Yeah,
That's
we can
great
share it
too.
too. Yeah, it's fine, I can
Because
read
I can't.
it. Or I can read my copy. Like that way as well.
All right, so just,
So just to let you know that the way I kind of put this together is I went back and I looked at some of our old zoning resolutions. So I looked at the 2008, and there were a couple from last year where we talked a little bit about, our sort of our philosophy and our neighborhoods. And so I just tried to include that information in there. To have sort of a basis for what we feel as a community board, and I think everyone would sort of agree with those because most of them are all past ones. And then I tried to write up what we said in the meeting last time, and then I added information in places where I thought it needed to be. I added information from George, but again, I'm not trying to direct. I'm just trying to offer information, and we can decide whatever we want as we go through it point by point. So.
once we get rolling, we'll make the time.
The second whereas, where does that come from?
That actually comes from the 2008 rezoning. Whereas CB3 believes that rezoning is just one tool that allows city government to protect its most vulnerable residents.
Thank you.
That was a direct cut and paste from our 2008.
That might have been for a different matter. I don't know if this zoning is focused on
Do you want a paper copy, John?
the vulnerable. I think there's a.
Well, I think it is. I mean, for example, there are a lot of people there are places where we're in some places we're representing people who live in NYCHA, and some places we're representing neighborhoods that are inundated in a sense with nightlife situations. If we allow, certain businesses come in that are, instead of having local retail, right? It was actually losing over and over, right? And this is the proposal is only gonna exacerbate that, right? So we're trying to protect our neighborhood. So it's a general statement. It's not meant to be like a.
Yeah, it's like zoning when it was created, as part of government's police powers. So that's why it's-
I think though it affects more than just the vulnerable. I think it affects all.
Yeah, no, that's why the first one came first. Wait, is there one that? Okay. Yeah, see, the first one starts off with CBD. I mean, I don't think it's controversial. CBD zoning can play an important first step in furthering opportunities for all New Yorkers, including businesses, residents, and visitors. Right? I don't know if there's anything controversial there. Anybody wants to change? CB3 believes that zoning is just one of the tools that allows city government to protect its most vulnerable residents. Whereas CB3 believes that the city government must do more to preserve neighborhood character by listening to communities that best understand their local needs and ensure a say in the final process. Unlikely, but we can always say that. Can actually get rid of the highlighting if you want. It's just, it was,
Oh, yeah, sure.
if you
Or
want.
is this it here?
Yeah, it's highlighted, but that was just, it was places where they were changed. All right, and so the next one sort of describes our neighborhood, obviously, whereas CB3 in Manhattan is a mixed-use community district with many residential streets with commercial overlays serve, I think I probably could have edited this better, streets with a commercial overlays to serve local retail needs as well as commercial streets and avenues, and was not designed as a major destination or commercial district. I could probably edit that better, but I added somebody else's ideas there. But
I mean, is there a point that you feel is not being made? Or
No.
just a language or a word preference that you're?
no, it just sounded redundant with streets back to back. I don't really have a problem with it.
I'm a little unclear about the 191 that were non-conforming, but they were not in residential districts, because the other of which says 134 were non-conforming in residential districts.
The next one,
Well, the third paragraph about talking about open restaurant. It says there were 191 non-conforming, of which 134 were non-conforming in residential districts. Where were the others? I mean,
they were, I assume, in commercial areas,
Like
right?
Orchard Street is a commercial district
okay.
or a commercial zoning.
So I thought that, wouldn't they be as of right commercial then, if the whole area is zoned for commercial? I don't know how they'd be non-conforming. I'm confused.
I'm not sure. I mean, this is specifically from the January resolution last year. I believe.
I mean, this is data that
Okay.
we're receiving, so. I mean,
It was passed by the board last year,
yeah.
last January. but
I mean, we can look at it to see if it needs to be updated, but I mean, I think it's just data to support what we're saying.
Is it the clarity of the language itself or the numbers?
It's the clarity. I just didn't understand I thought that they're non-conforming because they're commercial spaces in residential districts on side streets. Like, if
That's
they're in a
probably a
commercial
ty- that's
district,
probably
how are
a
they
typo.
non-conforming?
Well, some of them could be like second floor, right?
Oh, is that it? Okay.
And we do have some second floor that is non-conforming.
Well, I think there may be a difference between non-conforming and non-conforming in a residential district.
Yeah, no, I
that's
think
it.
he gets that. He just is surprised it's non-conforming in a.
Is that what you're surprised by?
Well, I just
I
thought
think
that by definition, it's non-conforming because it's in a residential district. We don't have manufacturing districts, I don't think, in Twenty 3. We have commercial and residential
Right.
districts.
I assume they tried to just make the point like with a hammer.
Does anybody else want to weigh in or attempt to
I don't know if
bring any
George
clarity?
knows.
George, do you have anything to add to that?
There would be very few that, I mean, the point that was brought up about second floor, commercial or, that would be non-conforming. But there wouldn't be that many. It seems to be a large number of non-conforming, restaurants in the commercial district. It's something that we could look at, or you could just, go with it.
Okay, I'll leave it alone.
Was there?
I don't
was there
think that's
data
the point you're
citation?
making, though.
I didn't see
No, I
that.
think
The
he's-
citation
maybe
was just.
He's not sure, it sounds like either,
Alright.
but they must be second floor non-conforming perhaps. So.
All right, well, I mean,
It's an awful lot of things.
we can try to, unless you want to suggest an alternative.
Was anybody-
Well, I don't know what the data source was, but I mean, if it's from an actual.
It was from this committee
Mhm.
last January, I believe.
I can't speak, I wasn't here last January, so.
It was all right.
All right, so I'm gonna move us on, and if you find
I
something
don't
that
think that
contradicts this, you
was
can
Bible.
introduce that and we
Yeah.
can change it. All right, so let's move on to the next section.
Say it's a problem. Whereas with the most wide-ranging zoning, rezoning 61, did I miss one?
No,
Oh, sorry.
CB3.
Sorry,
is one of the
CB3 is one of
top
the top two densest community districts for eating and drinking businesses in New York City with 1,004 open restaurants. And that should be CB3. Historically has been one of the top two districts in the city with the most commercial noise complaints at bars and restaurants. The proliferation of food and drinking establishments with higher rents has forced many local businesses and services to close.
Objection to that characterization of the
On top of
current
the-
conditions?
On top of the internet.
Okay, good. Next.
Whereas with the most wide-ranging rezoning since 1961, the city of Yes for Economic Opportunity prioritizes increasing and maximizing commercial FAR. It comes mainly at the expense of housing, neighborhood benefits, and quality of life. We believe in a balance between business and affordable housing. We question leaving housing as the last piece of rezoning as NYC becomes less and less affordable for its residents.
Good.
Good point.
Sorry, I know I'm not very, but just going back to the previous one, your last statement where it says the proliferation of food and drinking establishments with higher rents has forced many local businesses. Maybe it's a too fine of a point, but it's not really the eating and drinking establishments with the higher rents, is that?
It is, though.
It is.
Well,
They're driving
really,
up the market.
they're paying the higher rents, but is that
Well, you're saying it's not the industry's fault, but in some ways,
It's,
I don't know how
yeah,
you can separate those two.
I know,
Because
that's
the
what-
industry is facilitating.
they're able to pay the higher
They're able
rent,
to.
is what it is.
And so there, I mean, I don't know how we change that.
I know,
But
it's
if you-
fine, I was just wondering if it was.
I mean, I do mention on one of the points that later, I think, talking
I
about
think
how,
that, sorry,
go ahead.
was it the point that food and drinking establishments can pay the higher rents and therefore are displacing smaller,
They can't afford it.
like, that can.
Yeah, like the candy store that
Everything
closed or the
like that.
local deli.
I mean,
that
I
closed.
know that is the point, that because food and drinking establishments can't afford the higher rent, landlords often tend to create conditions to attract those type
Or
of
hold out
establishments
for
or
a higher
hold
rent
out for those higher, which is why you see a lot of vacancies on Avenue B right now, Clinton Street. I mean, Clinton Street's getting a little better, I think, but I don't know.
Also, I got some of the suggestions for language from the EBCC, which has been sort of monitoring this, and that's basically what they've seen, you know.
No, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with it, I was just wondering if there was a better way to say that.
You might want to say
couldn't think of it right
the
now.
proliferation of food, drinking establishments has driven up the
Yes.
commercial rents,
Actually, that's.
which has made
That's
it
actually
harder for other businesses to compete.
Yes.
That's
Can we
something
say
where-
is one factor in, because I mean, there's a million factors
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
why small businesses are getting pushed out of the neighborhood. and-
No, another part is obviously a lot
Yeah,
of good, I
online.
mean, internet. I mentioned that later when we talk about, like, they want to open up. I do mention about how later,
Yeah, I
as
just
well.
wonder, by saying the proliferation of eating drinking establishments with high rents, I, like, what I was saying, make it sound like they're the ones that are blamed, it's not really the eating and drinking establishments, it's a factor in it, it's like.
It is
It's
a
the market,
factor.
you've got high
They're
demand
not
and little
gonna-
supply.
Okay, hold on one second. They're not gonna take all of we can't give them all the blame, but the bars and the restaurants, no matter how we might feel about them, like them or dislike them, they do create noise, they do attract lots of people, and they do drive the rents up.
Yeah.
And they, I mean, that is just a reality. So maybe what we could say is that the proliferation of food and drinking establishments with,
And I think.
with higher rents,
I said has driven up.
right.
Has driven,
Has driven up, that's fine.
Many
is one factor
local-
that has driven up,
That's what I want to say.
is one
It's
factor that has
one factor
increased,
that
You
has
could say it's
helped to,
I mean,
or is
it's,
it a contributing factor?
or it's
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
contributing
That's fine.
factor, so say that.
Just so that it just doesn't sound like it's the eating and drinking establishments driving up the rents, it's a lot of other things.
Is a contributing factor to driving up the rents.
And folks okay with that language, a contributing factor?
yep. And again, this, like I said, and this is gonna be this topic's gonna be brought up later as well, so
Okay.
it's gonna be addressed specifically.
So,
We can add to it.
maybe
So-
you have something to add?
Is a contributing factor to driving up the rents of other commercial, of other retail?
Of the
Because that doesn't make
neighborhood
sense the
or-
way it's right now. The proliferation
Of
of
some
food
of the
and drinking
commercial spaces.
establishments with higher rents is a contributing factor to driving up the rents, of driving up the rents to non-eating and drinking.
Yes, yes.
Retail
Right,
or-
right. I think that's real, it's
Yeah.
not necessarily, I mean, there's a connection to housing, but it's a different thing, right? So you got that, John?
Yeah, he's got it.
Okay,
Like that?
you're making that.
I'm just reading.
All right, great, so are we good with that? I think
Well,
that's a happy
well,
compromise, good?
But the thing is, it's driving up the rents in all retail. The way it's written now, it implies that it's not driving up the rents for other
I would just say all retail,
for
yeah.
all retail. It's a
Okay.
general driving up the rents.
Or
Instead of not
yeah, or
eating
just-
all
Of
retail.
all of our commercial spaces,
It's
really, is the
contributing
issue.
factor to
Yeah.
driving up
I
rents.
mean, that's the
Just leave it
truth,
at
it's driving up the
rents.
rents of our commercial spaces.
In retail spaces.
It's not, yeah, all right, so are we okay with that?
Yeah.
In all
Yes.
retail?
And are we saying all retail or are we
In-
saying commercial? Spaces.
I would say in retail spaces.
Retail, it's
In all-
We could also just keep the same language of local businesses and services.
No, because it's broader than that. It doesn't matter. It's driving up the
Yeah,
rents.
I would
regardless
say
whether
in
it's local or
retail,
not.
I agree with getting rid of all, maybe just
So should, you prefer the language of
In retail
retail than to
spaces.
commercial?
yeah, I think so. Retail to me means like ground floor, walking into a
Yeah.
business to eat.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
I mean-
laundromats, dry cleaners, it's not just, I don't know, those aren't really retail, those are other.
Right,
services.
that's what this, I think it's more
In
Oh, you
commercial
can
spaces.
street
retail
level
like
commercial
some-
property that's really impacted the most.
Okay, Yeah,
Like,
I
so,
don't really
that's what I think, because it's everything, it's like, it changes like.
Why don't we just
other-
drives up
other
the commercial
businesses.
rents?
Yeah.
Rents-
Drives up the
Commercial
commercial
rents,
rents,
that's
that's
it,
fine, I
okay.
think that's.
We're gonna
commercial rent.
settle, that's what we're
Commercial
doing.
rents, yeah, that's.
Yeah, because the
We're
leases are
commercial
commercial
rent.
leases, basically.
Commercial rents.
All right,
Either
we're gonna-
commercial or residential leases.
Now we're gonna limit the discussion on that and move
Very
on to
good.
the next step.
All right,
Take us to the next.
whereas CB3 supports common sense normalizing portions of the zoning text for a clear understanding.
We skipped whereas,
Did I skip another one?
yeah, the one right above it.
Oh, that's because I got distracted, sorry.
It's okay.
With the most wide-ranging rezoning since 1961, the city for yes for economic opportunity prioritizes increasing and maximizing commercial FAR. It comes mainly at the expense of housing, neighborhood benefits, and quality of life. We believe in a balance between business and affordable housing. We question leaving housing as the last piece of rezoning as NYC becomes less and less affordable for its residents.
That's good.
You can also say for its residents and its businesses. As a matter of fact.
But I think your point is-
But you're talking about the.
I'm specifically talking
housing.
Housing, yeah, so I think that's fine, but I'm like, that's fine?
Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas CB3 supports common sense normalizing portions of the zoning text for a clearer understanding, CB3 believes much of the zoning text changes, overreaches, and threatens the diversity of our neighborhood.
Okay, that word now is there on purpose? Now, right now?
Oh,
therefore,
now, yeah,
yes.
now,
Okay.
it's the usual now before therefore.
Do you
Yeah,
mean
so
threatens
I
the retail diversity or the commercial? I mean,
No, so for example, like if they want to continually grandfather everything, right, that threatens our side streets. You know, I mean, like we said in the upper paragraph above, right, this was never meant to be a location or a major commercial district. But a lot of these changes is going to make it more of a commercial district by maximizing commercial FAR, right? Particularly, you know, second floor, top floor, middle floor, I mean. That seems like a fair statement, right, George?
Oh, you're muted.
Yes, it seems like a fair statement.
All right, therefore be it resolved that CUNY Board 3, Manhattan votes to support the amendment as a whole. Maybe as a whole is too strong.
This is to support.
Supports the, I think, portions of the amendment.
Man, votes to support, okay.
Should be votes to support some of the proposals and votes against others.
Can't we,
Well, the
Although
first-
maybe.
why do we have to
reference-
define that in that sentence? Can't we just say, therefore be it resolved that CB3, the Community Board 3 Manhattan, votes to support or
We
vote.
could say votes, it's
vote
voting either yes or
on
no
the following, and then we just
on the
list.
following 18 proposals.
Right, and then each one has its own.
That's
And
fine.
this way, they cannot misconstrue it in any way and think that we are saying yes and then no.
Well, what's your language again, though? The beginning of.
So Manhattan's, you could say, therefore result Manhattan Community Board votes on the following 18 proposals, either yes or no with explanations, as noted below. Is that enough? Simple enough?
Yeah, because I wouldn't want the start to be support.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I don't want to suggest
That
that,
would be the only thing people pick up.
because most of it is actually not so much support.
So we're okay with that? We're gonna say that at the beginning, right? We're not gonna say yes or no, we're just pretty much saying therefore, we're laying out the following, you know, comments and letting, and voting yes or no on each section. Okay, great.
Sorry, can we just go back one step?
Sure.
So on the diversity of a neighborhood, I think that,
Where are we at now?
just as the whereas right before,
Yes, what, tell me.
how, I think it's a little strong saying it threatens the diversity of the neighborhood, because I could make an argument, like, the grandfather in the storefront, you're actually preserving the diversity of the neighborhood, because you're preserving the storefronts. What's an example?
Which whereas they.
The one right above.
So,
We said
But I
much of
think
the zoning
that the
change-
point here is
text
not
changes.
to, Alistair, though, I think the point there is not to think of one instance only, but to think of the overall impact. of what is happening here. And I think the overall impact of this City of Yes text amendment change, or the feeling is that it is threatening the diversity of this neighborhood. Different
I don't know if
neighborhoods have
diversity
different
is the right-
issues.
So there's another way you could make the argument in a sense. I think it's simpler. Basically, the city is using a hammer to propose a massive citywide change, right? It will apply to every neighborhood. There's a lot of diversity in neighborhoods in New York City. I mean, the diversity of neighborhoods is what I mean, right? I
Right.
mean, that's the thing we love about New York City, right? There are
Yeah,
just
of course.
so many great little neighborhoods. And to just hammer it with like one zoning text that makes, is for the entire city doesn't make any sense.
But parts of the zoning text actually preserving the diversity. For example, the storefront issue. That's preserving the storefronts. Which is
Yeah, but it's
originally-
saying
But that's
much
a
of the
different-
zoning, it's not saying,
It's
it
not.
is saying much of the zoning, like the dark stores, the.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we're,
It's a general
we're
statement.
not,
It's
this is not a
Okay,
material
okay.
statement, and I'm gonna have us move on.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
fine, okay. Thanks, guys, sorry about
So
that.
I don't know which version.
The one that
This
you
is the
talked
most
about.
recent one.
Okay, that's the one that Andrea commented
Yeah.
on.
I
Okay,
think I'm missing it.
so
This one out of these.
maybe
Oh,
should start with
that's the
proposal,
one
should start with
after.
proposal one.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, like Johnson on that.
Then Andrea said.
Yeah,
That's
Andrea
what he
said,
said.
actually. So basically, so here's the question. So with each proposal, I think we have to say yes or no. And explain, and maybe we can go through I don't know which way to do it first, to sort of go through the points and talk about what's written, or,
Well, each point expresses where we're at.
yeah. So I mean, I can just
So you should
read.
each point the
read the
way
point.
it is, and
Yeah,
then we
that's
can
fine.
go from there.
So CB3, so a lot of this, again, some of this information is drawn from some past information here. CB3 numbers among the highest in the city for non-conforming spaces on narrow residential side streets. CB3 and housing advocates have consistently requested these spaces return to conforming residential use after 2 years without a tenant. That's actually what we have done in our past zoning. This would increase housing stock, conceivably. CBD recognizes the expense to landlords to rent these spaces is high and makes conversion to residential unlikely. However, there is an excellent option, I don't know if I want to use the word excellent, that would occupy the storefronts without having to remain vacant or return to residential. The storefronts would allow for use group 3 community facility use. This will allow for nonprofits or cultural centers to use these spaces and fulfill a current need. In January 2023, CB3 had 134 restaurants with open dining. As reported by Power City Planning, there's more than 134 active non-conforming businesses. I think this should be made.
It should, I think you just meant to say non-conforming nightlife business.
Yeah, I didn't make that change, by the way. So take out
The first business.
the first business, non-conforming nightlife businesses. Are the minimum,
Possible nightlife.
yeah, I didn't write this,
businesses that-
are the minimum of possible nightlife businesses that would become conforming on residential side streets? So it would be basically we'd be conforming 134 non-conforming businesses that are nightlife businesses. Is that maybe simpler to say that?
Or you can say would 134 active, non-conforming nightlife businesses. Why do we? feel
We could actually
they are the
remove that
minimum of
entire, are the
possible-
minimum number of possible,
Yeah, I just think we need to say,
I think we give that a whole, are the minimum number of possible.
okay, but, so just leave it at nightlife businesses are the 134 non-conforming nightlife businesses.
I think we should say food, drinking, not nightlife, though, right?
Okay,
Because
yes.
should say food and drinking establishments. Right, I think we realize
That's
that
fair,
they can't have alcohol is a problem, so.
okay.
Do we want to be short and sweet or extensive in these things?
Oh,
I-
you know.
I think it's better to explain what our thinking is, to be honest. I mean, there are some on here that are not particularly exciting, but this one, some of the nightlife stuff is a little more extensive.
Keep going, though.
Wait, so that sentence needs to finish.
Yeah, so
See.
134 active, non-conforming food and drinking
Businesses would become
Businesses.
conforming.
would become conforming.
in addition to any new business, in addition to new businesses, you could say, right?
I mean, I think so, yeah.
Did you?
If I
Any-
may, the
as of-
expression- The expression is eating and drinking.
Yeah,
I don't know whose comment is that is on the side,
I think it's on.
is it Andrea's? But I think that encompasses what you're trying to do.
And it's,
I can't see the comment because I'm,
so I'll read it. It says, summarize, CB3 has a high number of non-conforming spaces on narrow residential streets and fields requests from housing advocates for their return to conforming residential use after 2 years without a tenant. While acknowledging the high conversion expense for landlords, CB3 proposes an alternative, allowing use group 3 community facilities in these storefronts, addressing the need for nonprofits or cultural centers. Despite concerns about nightlife businesses causing issues on side streets, proposal number 1 is supported with a modification excluding eating and drinking establishments from the lifetime limit to reactive vacant storefronts, aiming to preserve the residential environment of narrow residential streets. I think that
that was meant to replace this entire
that's
paragraph.
exactly right, and I actually think it's really good. So
Yeah.
should we just move forward with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so can we, my suggestion would be remove excellent and put in.
We're not, we're
another-
removing that
We're
whole
moving this
thing
whole
out,
paragraph
sir.
into
Follow
separate.
it.
Breaking it,
This is
okay,
putting
oh,
it
great,
together.
okay, I mean, approved.
Okay,
So in that case, we would say yes, support, but
No
Yes.
eating, drinking.
say no eating and drinking, and it should return, no eating and drinking specifically, it should return to use group 3 community, whatever. I think that's what,
yes.
right, so we'd be, so this is something I could write in a note, so we'd be voting yes.
Should we put, do you guys want to have that in
The title?
Yeah, I think it should be in the title of the proposal, yes,
with comment? or-
yes,
I-
with modifications.
Yeah, but so going back to I mean, we've been told that they are really looking at these comments and really trying to incorporate them. So I want to have faith in that process, but at the same time, my experience tells me that once you say yes, that's all they see and they stop reading.
So what if you do it like we do with SLA and say no?
You could say no.
Unless, no, unless they agree to modify, are you being that specific?
I think we want to be that specific.
So, I mean, that's a strategy. We can say no to everything unless, with whatever
Unless they
our
agree to-
recommendations are.
This
That's
change?
a good idea.
Where we say no,
I think
unless,
that's-
or no,
Right.
period, right? We can
Unless
do
they look at
that.
all the no's and that is, you know. Unless they get it in the summer.
I don't think so. I mean, we explained why we have a
Yeah.
problem with it, so.
Okay.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
That's a good idea.
So, yeah, so we should say,
Hold on, there were.
No, I agree, no unless.
No. no, we do not support unless, I think that's the best way to do it.
Unless the attach or the below modification is.
Right, consider, okay. All right, great. Yeah, fine.
No, that's below modification is agreed to. Okay.
With, but I mean, you can't say, we don't usually say that. We usually say no with conditions.
Okay.
Right, or no, I mean, we do say the conditions, but we say, no, what would be the appropriate way to say no unless? That's it, we just say unless the
You gotta say
modifications are made, or?
Um,
If we're gonna say no
I think it's,
with conditions, right?
I think it's the opposite, right, Chris?
Well, we don't want to say
We
yes.
don't wanna say yes, we wanna say no.
We think if we say yes, they're not gonna read it.
We wanna say no unless
So-
they listen to our recommendations.
Yeah.
So our phrasing normally is deny unless the applicant agrees. But in
That's
this
right.
case, we don't want to say, we're not trying to say that they have to agree necessarily. We're saying, no unless the attached or the proposed or the below, I'm trying,
That's
whatever
the
you
language
say.
I'm looking for.
No,
Yes.
unless eating and drinking is excluded.
Yes, no unless the following changes or the following modification is accepted or something
Right.
like that.
That's fine. No, unless a following modification is made. I think
So
that's
that,
fine.
can we
That's the
use
way
that
it
language
is.
like that? Can we say that?
So why not?
All right, so let's go. We got it, let's go.
Print it out.
Thank you.
Let's do
That's
it.
what I was trying to-
So how do we want?
Okay, do we want
We're
to,
gonna
do we
say
want to
no
vote on that? Want to take a straw poll vote on that?
Well, let's get to them. No unless,
Right.
Below modification is agreed to.
No, unless the below
Unless the
modifications
following, unless the following modification is
Are made.
made to the proposal.
to the proposal. Very good. And keep that sentence on the, on the,
And then you just use that for the previous,
Yeah.
for the
That's
following.
exactly right.
keep that on the clipboard.
Yeah.
All right,
Because I'm wondering, because when I submit this to the DCP portal, they have the four options. It's yes, no, yes with stick, or
So
no
we're
with
gonna say
conditions, no with conditions. So let's put no with conditions for everything.
Oh, they actually give you that option in
Yeah.
the portal, so then that's what you're, that's
yeah,
exactly what
that
you're doing.
makes sense.
Yep. Right.
so if we know that we're voting, that's what we're saying. Do we want, are we gonna vote now on the
We should.
language
Oh.
each step of the way, or are we now saying, we're saying no to, and then, but I guess we have to agree to all the modifications that we're
Yeah, we
asking.
do have to, so I think we like that second that revised paragraph that our chair wrote was fantastic. I
We
think
used
that was
it.
yours and
Oh, okay, thank you.
we like that,
Okay,
okay,
I'll
just to let
remember.
you don't have to.
Oh,
We were referring.
Okay, we have some, because there's not that many of us, I'm gonna, can you,
What was this
Connor,
comment?
Connor has a comment and
Oh, sure.
he wants to speak.
Happy to have Connor speak.
So we're gonna have him speak.
Okay.
Yeah, Connor or George, feel free to raise your hand throughout, right?
Yes, that's correct.
That's what we want. Actually, unmute yourself if you want, unless you don't want to.
Yeah, they're already panelists, they should be able to just.
Yeah, Connor wasn't a.
Connor's from, no thanks. Connor's from, Councilman Martin's office. The zoning guy, was your last one.
Okay, Connor is a panelist, so should be able to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, Connor, just unmute yourself and speak. if you
Unmute
want.
yourself, yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you for joining us, Connor.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. Well, I just know you're talking about the no with conditions versus the other options. I think it is helpful to follow the normal framework of ULURP when you know deciding on this. Like, yeah, it's true. Like, you can have a no with conditions, which I believe is interpreted as you're against it unless those conditions are met, which is what you were, I think, trying to get at with this proposal. I also just wanted to, suggest that it is, I think it's helpful to break it down to proposals, and I think you should, but I think that there is maybe some value in having a overall opinion, just because of the way that ULURP is interpreted, right? Like how normally a recommendation on something that might be just a single rezoning or a single land use action, you'll have like a yes with you'll have a single opinion on it. I know that other community boards have tried to, they'll go through each proposal, and then if it's if it's majority unfavorable, they'll maybe make a overarching kind of no with conditions for the whole thing, just because it is at the end of the day one application. So I think that the proposals are a way that DCP is trying to break it down, but at the end of the day, it's a singular text amendment. So just 2 cents there. I mean, it's obviously your decision, but I think there is some value in having like an overarching opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think, thank you, Connor, for that. Does anybody have any questions or any comments they want to make to that
Well,
in response?
so that change would come in the top whereases, right?
That'd be right here.
So did you hear our whereases, Connor, and would you change those somehow at the end?
Yeah,
of the-
no, I mean, I think I think I think you guys are like working it out well. Like, I think that it makes sense to go through each proposal and everything. I wanted to say, I think from my perspective, there's value in having I think it would be a therefore clause that sort of summarizes the opinions about the text amendment as a whole, and maybe provides like a no with condition, whatever it might be, depending on how the proposals as a whole come together from your perspective. Like if the majority of them are unfavorable or are no with conditions, then I think there is some value in having a no with conditions for the whole application, just because that's that's kind of how.
Yeah, okay. I think we got it, yeah, so Connor, you there?
Yep.
Yeah, so just to make sure that I'm keeping us on track and that I'm clear, you're saying overall that whether we, even if we go through each section and we have a no with condition for each section, that that your opinion is that we should have a vote or an opinion, a position for the overall.
Yeah, correct. Like, I think maybe at the
Okay.
end, you can, based on how you've decided on each of the proposals, you can, maybe there's an obvious opinion of the whole thing, right? Because maybe, I don't know what it looks like, but if like 12 of the 18 you're a no on generally, then it makes sense to just have a no for the whole thing. But it, depending on sort of how you see the.
All right, so let's see
It's
how
gonna be
it.
a no throughout the whole thing with
Absolutely.
conditions, I
You
think.
Yeah.
Well, that's not clear yet.
Right,
Some of it might be like, yes, this is fine.
All right, we
Okay.
can't have this cross talking. This is not gonna work,
Okay, sorry.
okay? So I get it, but we're not gonna do that. Thank you. So who wanted to speak?
I'm good. I'm gonna answer.
Yeah, okay, so this is what we're gonna do.
Just one, I will just, I think what he was summarizing was on this first therefore, use the language that you just put, and it would either be in, for the majority of them, support with the following modifications, and then each of those will be detailed in the thing below, as opposed to putting it in each one. We oppose, just say the majority with the following modifications, and they would be listed under each item.
But I do think, and I don't know if I'm wrong, but from what I've been told, the way in which the vote is going to be recorded through the form, and when you go online, is each section by
Is
section.
individual.
It's
Okay, so that's-
individual. That's what I was told, and that's why you have to
You
do
should.
yes, no to each one, or, is that correct?
Could I ask, like, did they give you a form that looks different from the regular?
Yes, they gave us a form, Connor, that had 18 slots with the section of that we would be commenting and voting on, and then allowed for you to say yes or no, and then to write your comments. But we didn't use the form because there were some glitches with it and we couldn't.
Even so, what we have isn't gonna fit in the form, so
Right.
we'll just reference our
Yeah,
resolution.
I think I know about that. I mean, I've heard it described as more of like a worksheet, but I don't know, like, I don't know. Yeah, I think because I think it's always probably good to just sort of rely on the way that it normally goes, being you can have very detailed comments on aspects or proposals within the text amendment, and I think those are really important. But the city planning commission, everyone's going to be, at the end of the day, they might just ask like, did you approve or with conditions, or no with conditions on the application?
They're asking us for each section, so I think that's what we're gonna do, all right?
So,
Yeah.
just quick, I think what he may be alluding to is that you sort of need a summary somewhere, to say, and it may not be necessary to say, overall, this is how we feel, an executive sets,
Yeah.
summary,
I think we got that though.
or put it in the first page of the letter.
Okay.
So we could do this, like, I think what Damaris is trying to say was we'll have a summary at the end.
We can have it at the beginning, or we can have it at the end, but I do think that, I mean, you guys can overrule me, but when we go in to do it, I think the system is gonna dictate how it has to happen. So in my opinion, I say we include it, and if we don't need to, we can have one, paragraph or one vote overall, but my understanding is that you have to vote on each section.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, so let's
So-
continue.
Yeah, let's continue.
Yeah.
And then I think, maybe we can start it off the way Connor recommended, or at least review it at the end, and if we see that they're all that way, we can say, therefore be it resolved, blah, blah, blah. Right, so I think that'll
So what are
be,
we saying?
those
No,
things too, Connor.
Unless the following modifications. Make the proposal.
all right, thank you for that, that was super helpful. All right, let's move, if there's no other comments, we're just gonna move on to the next section, because.
So are we gonna take a straw poll vote on this, on each
I
I
one?
thought everybody was good with that, yeah.
Well,
Oh.
we're gonna have each proposal as its own, so.
Yeah.
Or we should just take a straw poll,
All right,
right? I mean, not like a full vote, maybe a straw poll like last time, or what do you
We
want
can
to do?
straw, and if anyone, if there's more than a few objections, we can stop or just continue.
What do you want to do?
let's do it, come on.
All right, let's just do a straw poll vote.
Everyone,
Who's in favor of the current?
I would be, but I'm not.
Yeah, we're not allowed.
Right, you're not allowed abstaining, so two abstains. In favor? Okay, that's,
Move forward. Number 2.
all right, number 2, so this is the one that's actually yes. Proposal simplifies business types allowed on commercial streets. This is basically, normalizing C1 and C2. So they're not weird. I don't know that we have a lot of this per se, but I mean, it makes sense, and that's how people think. I did steal George's words. This is how people think zoning works. Like they would never guess that like one side of the street was C1, the other one C, it's like. So this one's not controversial. There's no trickiness in there, right, George, in these? I mean.
You're muted.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they're pretty straightforward. It's really the other stuff that they added.
Right. It's common sense updating, right?
Let me just ask George a quick question.
That's my opinion. Others may disagree, but I think it's common sense update.
All right, in the spirit of how we're doing this, let's do our straw poll for number 2. Does everybody agree?
Yes.
Okay. Number 3,
So we would just vote yes.
yes. So that's why we cannot do that at the beginning.
You can include comments if you want. You don't have to. You can just say yes. I think it's fine. Okay, so next one is expand opportunities for small scale clean production. CB3 sees this as a major change, the zoning moving away from groups to allow clean manufacturing. I actually like the sentence I had in there because, right, this is a comment that George actually made in his notes about we're moving away from what you call the Euclidean zoning to, what's the other term?
Form-based.
Form-based, and I think the problem is that like, that works like great in like Toledo. But I don't think it works in New York City. There's no city in the United States like New York City. And that's what I was hoping to express, and I don't know if people agree or not, I don't care, leave it in, take it out. But I think
have
it's
a problem
important to
with the sentence.
express.
I mean, I don't know who recommended to take it out, and was that
The
you?
track changes are mine. I just
Okay.
did it in like
It's okay.
thinking through people trying to read 12 community voice comments, that's all. Like, I was just trying to streamline
Okay.
as much of like.
But it wasn't for any
So-
real material difference,
No,
right?
no, no,
Okay.
like, for me, it was just a sentence that's, like, I didn't know if it would added anything particular.
So it's, what I was trying to allude to the theoretical
Yeah,
point of view that, again, we're not like, I think we really want to be concerned about not becoming like London or becoming Houston or, again, if everything is, if you get rid of specialized zoning and everything is the same everywhere, that doesn't help CB3, right? So I think that's why I like the sentence, but I don't have a strong,
I like it too. I think it has a little
just
bit of
reject the
character to it.
reject the
If
track.
nobody has any objections, right? Okay.
Anyway, this is a clear case where citywide zoning would destroy some neighborhoods' character, some of the neighborhoods' character. Especially in CB3, with many as-of-right production uses failing to serve residents. We see the possibility of traffic problems, dark sites, and unnecessary competition for commercial spaces that the neighborhood needs. Importantly, our streets preserve the character over time, and this is a little bit like preachy, but importantly, our streets preserve the character over time before cars became necessary in the US. We strongly prefer ground floor businesses to foster vitality, best experienced on foot, as opposed to dark sites with unnecessary production for CB3. We would only support production, the uses that serve the neighborhood and offer production products for retail sale. A perfect example would be an artisanal producer selling goods that are differing from other merchandise found around. It's not commonly sold online, and that's what we kind of want to bring back, right? Somebody who would want to produce. I used to make artisanal yogurt.
Is this for like ice cream and yogurt too?
Could be anything. Yeah, it could be ice cream, yogurt. It could be any kind of artisanal producer, baker, whatever.
Because there's some
leather maker.
So can I speak?
Yeah.
Because there's some shops that I see, like was in a house room where they produce the ice cream, they make the ice cream there. Would that fall under this category?
Probably.
Yeah, because you actually have to get, well, that's different because if you do dairy, it's gotta be licensed by the city and the state. But those are the kind of things we want. We want somebody who employs local people and makes local ice cream, right? I mean.
Yeah.
Like we'd be happy to have Van Leuven or somebody,
Yeah.
they already have a place here, but,
So is this a no unless they do?
I think this is a no unless, right? Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
No unless?
Sorry, the unless is which.
I don't think we have no unless.
We do, we were
have
told we
no-
do.
We have no with changes and no with modifications.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, that's what.
That's what we're doing. No following the modification,
No, unless the following modifications.
Yeah, okay,
That's how we're writing it. Right?
yep,
Sir, I have one comment on one sentence. Sure. The second sentence there, I think, say, this is a clear case where citywide zoning change would destroy some neighborhood's character. I say, I would change the would to could. Because we don't know exactly. what-
we don't know, but, it's true.
I think it's more.
There is actually, in a later portion, I referenced something George actually said, about second floor and above floor commercial. That, and we can leave it for later, but George's people did a study on the area between 85th and 90th or something, between Lex and somewhere, and they made those changes and they already lost, in the old buildings, they lost 22% of residential. And the new buildings, they lost 50% residential. So, but anyway, it's alluded to later, but. But if you want to make that, you have a strong feeling.
Yeah, I can't predict the future.
Right. Good is fine, that's fine.
I think could is a more accurate term.
Yeah, I mean, in other cases, I also say unintended consequences,
Yeah,
which is, that's what it is. you
Could
know?
have an unintended consequence.
Yeah, that's actually good. Could have unintended consequences, because that's what's also coming in some later ones where we're pretty sure it would have unintended consequences. but-
okay, I'm comfortable with that change. Does anybody have
Yeah,
any
no, I'm
objections to
comfortable with
that?
that.
All right.
Trouble?
Wait, do you want to have unintended consequences or just do would to could?
Could have unintended consequences.
Instead of destroy some neighborhoods?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Could have.
Can I just say, where you say we strongly prefer ground floor businesses to foster vitality, best experience on foot as opposed to dark sites with unnecessary production for uses for CB3, that the ending of that sentence sounds a little unclear. Is it you're saying unnecessary production for uses that don't benefit community work rate?
Yeah, so like, for example, somebody who's like making, not the case that you brought up of like a local repair shop for refrigeration, but someone who's doing like metalworking that's not sold in our neighborhood, like why would we, and has no retail. You know, if you open up, basically what we don't want is somebody opens up a production site that's not actually, it literally is a dark site with, you know, production, like a metalworking place that's gonna sell it somewhere else, you know?
I would just like maybe
I
change.
mean, we
the
don't
word.
want to become like
clarify.
a small production neighborhood where they come and produce everything here and take it everywhere else.
Right, I think it is a little unclear the way it's written.
Yeah, that's
They're free to modify it.
Yeah.
production that doesn't benefit community work rate, or
There you go.
production for
Yeah.
uses that don't benefit.
Right.
Something like that.
Excellent. Or maybe, since it is for a citywide text amendment, it could say that don't benefit the communities that they're in.
Sure.
That's fine, yeah, that sounds good.
That's
Yeah,
fine, that's fine.
right.
And I think that's, you know, much broader and, all right. So do we want to do a straw poll in this section, or are there any other changes that folks want to suggest? Another recommendation?
I have a question. I think sometimes we're going back and forth between the unnecessary competition for commercial spaces and other times we cite the vacancies. I don't know if that's confusing, because, you know, we do have a high vacancy rate. So when we talk about reducing the competition for these spaces, is it just mostly implying the reduction of the rent? Is that what we're trying to say?
I think competition for affordable spaces, maybe, right? I mean, I'm not, where is that at exactly?
This one is on the, this is a clear case where citywide zoning changes and then, oh no, we see the possibility of traffic problems, dark sites, and unnecessary competition for commercial spaces. I just don't know if that contradicts in other parts when we talk about the high vacancy rates.
So maybe we can,
Well,
Maybe
the-
clarify
I-
that.
Well, there would be more competition potentially between a new type of use that we couldn't put in there before, that's gonna compete with something that we might normally want in that space.
I think that makes sense. My only concern would be if we have this high vacancy rate, shouldn't we want maybe more options to fill it? I know we're saying that it's not the type of option we want, but I think it might just contradict.
I don't know that it contradicts it. I mean, maybe we can be more specific,
Okay.
I mean, if it's a,
that it's, yeah,
for example, if it's a production space that doesn't have a retail option, that to me is like a complete, no, I don't want that personally. Like, how does that serve us? They're just gonna be bringing in like trucks and stuff and delivering stuff and taking stuff out. There's no foot traffic aside from trucks and blocking parking and,
I
does
think.
that make sense? I don't know.
I think
Yeah,
what
that
she's
makes
trying to say though is that on one part, we say that we have a high vacancy rate, right? So it creates the illusion that there's lots of places. And how can we have so many vacant spaces and yet have people competing for spaces? Right?
And also the idea of like, what do we prefer, something vacant permanently or for years at a time, or maybe a something that doesn't face the public?
Well, one of the things that's not actually written in here,
The same difference to me, actually.
yeah, one of the things not written in here is actually talking about how, in some ways, and I don't know if everybody agrees with this, rezoning is trying to overcome kind of what happened with COVID, which is kind of like a one-time event, right? So in a way, I think it's going overboard trying to compensate for what happened with COVID. And as far as I can tell, New York City has always come back from every disaster, including bankruptcy. And so to me, I just feel like that's why I specifically use that word overreach. Because I feel like they're trying to go too crazy. Like they're going over too far to turn CD3 into a very commercial area, and that's not what we are. If that makes sense, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on the other one, so.
That's my point. of
I
view.
mean, I'll say
think
this
it's-
to you, I'll say that from my perspective, I would very much rather have a vacant space than to have a business in there that brings no value, no benefit, sucks, whatever, the life out of our community. I would rather have a vacant space. I mean, it's not an ideal thing, obviously, there is some value to having a tenant, even, if you think about it from the perspective of not having deserted streets, and safety, you can think about it from that perspective, but that's my opinion.
Right. I think the language is also trying to say, particularly in the whereases before, is we would like businesses that bring foot traffic if possible. And so again, like a dark store or a dark production site doesn't really help us.
So I just want to do a time check, and we're gonna have to limit some of the comments because it's about to be 8:00. And we are on proposal number 3, okay? So,
We have the space to work.
I think, if we're okay with that and we can take a straw poll on what changes we're making and how it is, what is the position that we're taking? Here is no, right? Yes.
No, unless the following
right.
modifications.
Okay,
Unless it's a site that also sells what's being made.
Right,
Yeah,
retail.
Can we just say it just has a retail component?
Retail
then it's-
component.
where can we just say that?
I think it needs to be made more clear that that's.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it, but it's not very clear.
Where, but
I know
where
maybe
where are
Tim's
you making
comes in
the
somewhere else,
suggestion? I need folks to
Right
say where they want the changes to be made, because otherwise.
Where it says, we strongly prefer ground floor businesses, you could say, we strongly prefer ground floor retail businesses. Does that make sense?
Okay, is that what we're saying?
Yeah, we want,
Trevor?
No, because we would be fine with this if it had a retail component.
right,
So why don't we just say
with a retail.
no, as long with the exception, unless it has
A retail
component.
component.
Simple as that.
Does the second one?
We're not gonna just, we wanna explain more. We don't just wanna say no
But we can.
unless it has a
put
retail
our-
component, because I think,
No,
And
keep the
benefits the
information.
neighborhood, I think,
Right,
too.
right. I mean, I
The
want
retail
us,
component
listen, we did a lot of,
Too.
I want us
You gotta
to,
hire
can I
people.
have you guys please stop? This is becoming unmanageable, okay? You guys have to have respect for the rest of the committee. So unless this material change, unless there's not a real substance change, I would like us to move to the next proposal. I think we've already gone over this. We already said how we were gonna vote, right? We took a straw poll. If we did not take a straw poll, then let's take one now. But let's move on. Did we take a straw poll?
No, we haven't, not
Okay.
on this section.
So let's take a straw poll. You made the changes or are you still unclear about the changes?
I didn't make the change. We would only support production of uses that serve the neighborhood.
And offer products for retail sale, is that what we're
That
saying?
is the current language.
That's fine.
Okay. Anybody have any objections to that?
Do we wanna add for retail sale in addition to manufacturing? So it's clearer, so.
To production?
To production?
I think that's what the whole thing is about, so,
Right.
wait, we do want production, I mean,
We want production as long as it has a retail component attached to it, I
okay,
think.
Yeah, it's saying you only support production.
yes, it
Okay.
says that already.
Okay.
But what about services? Is that not included?
Well, services are already allowed.
Okay, sorry.
Production, I mean, previously, production was only allowed in M zones, so
Okay.
that would be the change.
All right, are we good? Straw poll, everybody in agreement?
Agreed.
Okay, all right, let's go. Next, John.
Right, proposal 4. And I see you took out my one really strong language, which is fine, but proposal 4, modernize loading dock rules so the buildings can adapt over time. This is another proposal we got support, and it's conforming because it fails to modernize loading dock rules. Basically, and the next sentence I actually wrote was, it kind of makes a mockery of common sense zoning because it allows a landlord to just make a mistake on purpose and then have an as of right zoning, right? And I kind of alluded to going back to 1915 before zoning was in place because you could do that in 1915, right? There were no zoning rules. You could have an oops and then do whatever you wanted. And to me, that kind of feels like we're going backwards, right, George? It's not modernization, we're going backwards. That's my
I
point
think
of view.
that's fair.
So the real question here is.
But my statement was too strong. No, this as of right change would be, which would be abused without consequences. And would be, sorry, I should say, this is an as of right change and would be abused without consequences. Loading dock sizing requires an assessment of various factors, a process partially in existence. Is it partial, George, or is it fully, does it need to be, really needs to be formalized, right?
Well, okay, so zoning does have loading dock requirements, but it's always based upon the use and square footage. So if you have differing needs than what the zoning requires, there's not a good relief mechanism for that other than the BSA.
Okay. So we're basically, so it's okay to suggest they should find a process, but this isn't it, basically. Right?
Right.
So I think
Continue.
loading dock sizes require an assessment of various factors, which I think is true. A process which is in existence, you could say it's flawed. A flawed process is already in existence. Does that make more sense?
I don't think we can say that. I think we can say a process is already in existence that may need to be reviewed, but not in this process. Not
Maybe
in
we should
this-
say there's an
not in
informal
zoning.
process.
Right.
Um,
Or we don't.
Insufficient process already in existence?
That could say, I think that's.
Maybe we just simply say it needs to be fixed, but this isn't the way to fix it. Does that do we want to be, it could be that simple, like we're not zoning experts on, I'm not an
Can you
expert on loading
just
docks.
finish reading it, it's not.
Sure.
getting caught in
It should be a
everything.
formal process on a case-by-case basis, studying the use and traffic to serve needs of businesses and residents appropriately.
All right, so the only real change here, unless anybody else has another one, is whether or not we want to address the process that already exists by saying
we could-
something different or just.
We could get rid of that, actually.
And, all right, so we can just say.
I think it's better to get rid of
That
it.
would be it could, and I would say this is an as of right change. Instead of which would be abused, I would say which could be abused. Without
It won't be
consequences,
abused.
I know, you know. Loading dock sizing requires an assessment of various factors, a process already in existence, we're gonna take that out. So we're gonna say loading docks sizing requires an assessment of various factors. Period. It should be a formal process on a case-by-case basis. Right?
Yeah.
Studying use and traffic to serve the needs of businesses and residents appropriately.
I like that. Straw
All
poll.
right, are we good with that? All right, straw poll. Megan, you're gonna lead us in the straw poll.
Yeah.
All right, everybody?
I still love the 1915.
Yes, this is,
Just
we're saying,
just a no.
this is a no.
Okay.
Right. Not like we're not, this is not a no with conditions, though. This is a no, right?
It's a no,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, yes.
I just want to ask you, this is not a substance thing. The first sentence under there, this is another proposal that can, are we leaving that sentence in?
We can actually say no.
You're questioning it for a reason. You wanna tell us why?
Yeah,
We can just say
I don't
no,
think
yeah.
saying this is another proposal, I don't think that adds, strategically to the resolution.
Okay,
Instead of just saying we can't.
because it comes off as sarcastic.
Yeah.
I
Right?
meant it as sarcastic.
I know, but she doesn't want it to be that way so that they'll talk to us.
So we
Yeah,
cannot
I just
support
think
this
there's some
proposal.
wordsmithing to just be strategic.
I wanted to grind me.
Yes,
out.
Megan
Megan
has a
just
comment. Going forward, because we have 18 of these,
Yep.
can we go with like the spirit of them and not kind of go like with every word, right? Like we have to be careful. We don't, this is not like an
That's what I would
opportunity.
prefer, but I don't know if procedure we can do that.
Yeah, this is not an opportunity to like edit every single sentence by sentence, no?
I don't understand what you're saying.
Megan is suggesting that rather than go through each proposal, smithing it and editing each sentence, that we go through the proposal and we read each section and move sort of in the spirit of we agree. And if there are little material changes,
If
That-
there's something like
Yeah, 'cause we
really
still have-
stands out, like, yes, we can change it, but if, I don't know, small changes,
Well,
So Susan votes no.
yeah.
So I would say strategically, you want it to be as strong as possible, but you can do that, I mean, that wordsmithing that's not substance, you can agree to have done after the meeting.
Yeah,
Okay, that's fine.
But we should open this with CB3 votes no.
that's
Yeah.
right,
Yes.
yes. Number 5,
And we're deleting the 1915 sentence.
yes.
yes, and
Sorry.
we're also changing that this isn't, right, you got that, right? That this is
Okay, it's fine.
proposal number 5.
Enable commercial activity on upper floors. CB3 already has significant conflicts between commercial and residential spaces. I kind of like with little recourses for residents in site, but it's strong. Don't have to, anyway, we have several exceptions for second floor commercial spaces, and they exemplify what will happen with the adjustment to the C1, C2 overlay in CB3 to allow commercial on upper floors. Existing conflicts between commercial resident space, CB3 raised concerns about the proposed change. Despite the Florida City Planning's assurance of recourse for residents, challenges persist due to underfunded enforcement agencies. This change will maximize the commercial FAR and result in a reduction in housing stock. As an example, by the area of East 85th through 90th Streets between Lexington and Second Avenue. I don't know, we don't have to give statistics, or we could.
That's fine, keep going.
Given it is a known effect of increasing housing stocks, DCP needs to delay the implementation of this proposal before proposing zoning regulations to help ease the current and worsening housing crisis. Proposal 12 also reflects on this topic. And I think it's okay to mention that because it's alluded later, but we don't have to. We also find a considerable flaw in the environmental considerations. First, the application of environmental limitations fails to apply to neighboring buildings and covering only interior spaces. Second, environmental limitations are insufficient. Only air quality, noise, and vibration. It requires expansion to similar other uses, that would be like smell and other stuff. Thirdly, the exemption of small spaces less than 75-person capacity is arbitrary and will create further conflict between businesses, residents, CB3. Many of the second floor commercial spaces would be food and drinking establishments. And I guess we've already mentioned we're oversaturated, so I don't care if that stays or not. Higher floor rooftop establishments prove even more problematic owing to the ability to control environmental factors like noise. We've had several deaths from patrons falling from a rooftop establishment. The exception would exacerbate an already unacceptable situation.
I should take a minute to reflect on that.
This is a meaty one.
It's a meaty one. I'm giving folks an extra 2 minutes just to try to digest this piece. And then we're gonna take any suggestions, comments quickly, do a straw poll and move on.
I think the simple thing would be to start with a yes or a no, right? On the straw poll, and then we can fix the language. Like, I think that's kind of what Megan's saying in a sense,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
That's why I'm giving folks a chance to look it over and
Very
make
good.
sure. Excuse me. Folks, okay? Ready to move in?
Discussed this at length the last one.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So, let's do a straw poll and see, are folks in agreement with this? We're doing no on this, right?
yeah, it's a no.
Just a no.
I think we should explain, but no with explanation or
Well, I mean, this
No
is,
with modifications.
no with modifications, yeah.
Is that, are you making modification, or you're just saying no and explaining why?
I think we're saying no and explaining why.
yes,
Then I would just say no, give explanation colon.
right, so the vote is no, and then, okay.
Can I just
So,
ask a question? Given that we're saying no, at a certain point you say, given its known effect on increasing housing stock, DCP needs to delay any implementation of this proposal. So you're talking about no and then delaying, are you talking about something else here? Or you-
no, he's saying that this proposal, given its known, what the
explain?
proposal, yes, please.
So basically, what DCP actually at the meeting was a complete lie. The guy said like, it's not gonna affect housing stock, right? But in reality, what it does is it maximizes the FAR that currently hadn't been maximized. And it will definitely incentivize landlords to turn above floor spaces that were not previously maximized with.
I think that, sorry, the discussion with George was this will only affect new construction
No,
potentially.
no, I don't think so. It's anything.
So it will affect new construction for sure. It theoretically can impact existing buildings. That sort of conversion of residential to commercial space is not common. I don't think it will become common, but it will be theoretically possible.
But the biggest impact will be on new construction.
That's my opinion, yes. Because then you could build the building like that, right?
Yeah.
The conversion of a residential space into commercial space on the second floor is difficult.
But maybe not for a rooftop, but.
No, you need-
Yes, that's the C4 through C6 rooftop. Yes, that would be easier for sure.
Was your question answered?
Yep.
Okay, great. So if we don't have any other questions, any other objections, let's take a straw poll. Megan, you're falling off on your job.
I am, that's Strupple, who is in support of the number 5,
No, it being no, right?
it being no. Who's voting no on number 5?
We're good? Okay, great. Excellent. Yeah. We got
Am I
everybody?
supposed to be,
No, I'm
No.
I'm not.
You said yes?
She's
No, I
a no.
said
Okay.
no.
She's a no one.
No, 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 or just no. And we're not bringing up language.
Okay. All right.
We're not.
Proposal 6, simplify and modernize the way businesses are classified in zonings. I think this is, again, fairly straightforward. But I want to add a warning about unintended consequences. There could be some unintended consequences, right, George? If I remember your
Oh,
discussion.
absolutely. There absolutely can be. If you get into the details of the uses of the use groups, you know, you may have, you know, specific disagreements, like, is this really use group 7 or not? Because they're reclassifying everything. But you have to really get into the details to get, you know, that sort of, they're trying to modernize stuff. Did they get everything right? I can't say for that for sure. There may be unintended consequences.
So I wouldn't, we could shorten it to literally say yes, but we would want them to carefully consider unintended consequences.
That would be right.
Good question. I don't understand what the last line means. Maybe an example,
Which last one?
where it says, we want to warn against unintended consequences affecting the diversity of New York neighborhoods. How would this impact the diversity?
I think, George, you gave an example, but I didn't copy the example of an unintended consequence.
Well, unintended consequence, I'm not sure how it would affect diversity. But just, you know, getting the categorization of a particular use incorrect. And then so it goes into neighborhoods you wouldn't expect it to go in. That's very different than what it is now. And I'm sorry, I don't have a good example. Because I haven't, you know, gone through all the individual uses. There are, again, 50 pages of uses
Right.
with a fine-tuned comb and found those.
So you
what
want
do
to
we
take
say?
out the affecting diversity then,
Yeah, we could, I mean, that's language, but yeah, we could take that out.
because we don't know what it means. Is it possible to ask for the new classifications to come to the community report before they're finalized?
That could be good, yeah.
We have, so in the memo I wrote for you, there is a link to the classifications currently, where they have the old versus new side by side. And so that's
Sorry.
available now.
So I could take a look at it and maybe if there's a decent example, say something, but otherwise,
Yeah, that's right.
we would say yes, but concerned that this could be. Yes, but concerned there could be a mistake. But I'll look and try to find a mistake.
Yeah, none of us looked at it, so.
I did look at it briefly, but I didn't have time to focus on it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what we have, so we want to straw poll it? We're saying yes,
I'd like to get straw poll on voting yes on number 6.
well, why are we, hold on, I'm
Okay.
sorry. I thought we said we were gonna say no with modifications, but there's no,
No,
we're
because I
not
don't.
making any
know what-
recommendations here, that's why.
No, they do need to modernize it in a sense, because it's actually getting closer to the NICS ones, right? Which are a national code for uses. It's getting closer to that part I did read. It's getting closer to what is the national
Alright.
code of uses.
All right.
But again, New York City's not Toledo, so nothing
Alright.
against Toledo, but
Okay, straw poll
Anyway, we can leave
on
last
number
part out,
6,
it's fine.
voting yes on number 6. 1, 2, 3.
He had his hand up before.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yes.
Yes,
Okay, good, perfect, 7. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, John.
all right, proposal to clarify rules with urban indoor agriculture. We understand the need to update zoning reflecting advances in hydroponic growing and vertical farming. Growing healthy food in an urban environment will benefit both business and residents with this proximity. The agriculture policy in the US currently favors processed foods over nutrition, often at the expense of those vulnerable in our society and able to afford organic foods. Yet we would not want to see new agricultural uses adversely affect the housing stock in R72 districts. Also, cannabis is classified as an agricultural crop. And I don't know why this is actually blocked out, but I do have serious concerns about cannabis and its smell.
So basically, it's not blocked out, it's highlighted in connection with the comment, which is this entire thing, basically, we do not believe cannabis production should be incentivized in community board three,
I
right?
just summarized it. I didn't think we needed to go into all the details.
I wanted to do it because we already have a current problem with illegal cannabis stores, so we know it's a problem, and isn't the gap in a sense that we have state and city regulations that cause an issue?
No, I don't think that's it. I think they're both lousy regulations.
Well, yeah, they both suck.
No,
but-
I don't think there's conflicting. I don't think that's the issue at all. But I would say, the part about, this smell encouraging
smell's
people to
correct.
find a business in Rapid, I don't think is necessarily gonna forward the zoning issue.
I mean, you can't tell me there's not gonna be crime involved. I mean, I know it happened in California. I mean, I live in California. They have legal marijuana longer, but like literally marijuana farms get attacked. I'm not kidding you, by armed gunmen.
By what?
By armed gunmen.
But I
think
just
maybe-
question whether that needs to be in the zone.
Maybe, I mean, if you feel strongly, we can say
I mean,
there's safety issues, crime and safety issues,
Health and safety.
yeah.
you know? I mean, we can say that, but
I mean, this comment's not gonna go in the zoning. We're saying no to cannabis. But it's okay to explain why, isn't it?
Well, are we saying no to we're saying no to cannabis in this specific?
we're saying,
I think
well,
so.
this here, I mean, we don't know what
We
we're
don't have
saying
to,
because
but-
we haven't voted yet, right? But the recommendation is to say
We agreed
that
on
we
that last time.
have considerable, I guess we know, right?
It's a no.
Yeah.
And we could explain or not explain. I could make softer explanations, but I think crime is a concern to me.
I think it's a bit lengthy, and we can shorten it.
It could be shortened, yeah, I agree.
Clarify rules of urban architecture, why? And we give a reason why, and then we give one example. We can shorten that example so it's not so long.
Yep.
Because the spirit is, we don't want indoor urban agriculture without specific roots about it.
So could we use the sentence that was left in the comment and then just add at the end due to safety and health reasons? Would that summarize it?
Well, you want to propose language?
So the
What would you
sentence,
say exactly?
This one?
we do not believe cannabis production should be incentivized in our CB due to safety and health reasons.
It's also the smell is an environmental concern. I
Then what are
mean,
the safety and health reasons? I mean, it's like,
Just growing it, yeah, what is it
yeah,
really
just
gonna
saying
help?
that there's safety, it's like, what are they? Why are they?
Do we not want it just in residential districts? I'm a little unclear as to where it's allowed currently, or is it allowed in manufacturing districts? Is it allowed in, what districts is it allowed in near now?
Currently, indoor agriculture is allowed in manufacturing districts. Outdoor agriculture is allowed everywhere. But this change would allow indoor agriculture everywhere.
So, I don't know, I mean, would it be a problem in commercial districts? I mean, if we just want to exclude it from residential districts, would that
Because
be?
commercial isn't always just commercial. I live in a C1-4 and it's all residential buildings.
Mhm.
So it's not just the labeling of commercial
Right.
R, it's whether residential buildings would be affected. George gave a good example last month of where you could have your next door neighbor have in our agriculture farm growing cannabis or some other thing and have traffic going in and out because it's allowed. Well, and we're basically saying no and giving a reason why, but I think we can simplify this last paragraph or last sentence a little more succinctly.
Well,
I think that's too simple.
Ariana, if,
I think that's too simple.
okay, so then you want to suggest more robust language, but that's not as lengthy as.
Well, we can keep what he has already put in. I would just take out, it's easy to find cannabis growing up with operations because it smells. I agree.
It's an environmental concern, isn't it, odor? I mean,
I don't think odor is, that's.
it is, George.
You're growing it, not smoking it.
No, it's, you can smell. it.
Okay, but if you started farming cows on the second floor, it's gonna be an environmental
Yeah, but-
concern with smell, right? I mean,
Yeah, but the difference between cows is they let out methane gas. That's the difference, right? With cannabis, the smell, I don't know what's associated, any sort of health
I don't like,
impact.
personally, I don't like the smell of cannabis.
That's a different thing, that's a preference though,
Let me
right?
just explain, when you grow it, it smells.
I know.
Typically, you're allowed 2 plants or something, but everyone will know like those 2 plants. So when they grow up, you can smell on the entire floor.
So I guess the question, if I mean to interrupt you, is smell a nuisance? Can we categorize? it
Yes,
as
it's
a
an environmental
nuisance,
concern.
right? And so then that's what I would say, then leave it there.
I have a question about the spirit, okay.
I was gonna just suggest unintended consequences such as smell or increased traffic.
Perfect.
Is what we're saying here that we support the farming of food, but not of cannabis?
Yes,
I
that's all.
don't think.
It doesn't
It
read
says
that way. It says like, oh, we like this, but it says, we understand the need to vertical farming,
Yeah, so we could change it to its,
growing healthy food in an urban environment would benefit businesses. The agriculture policy in the US currently favors processed food over nutrition, often at the expense of most vulnerable and organic food. Yet, we would not want to see, that feels like we're willing to trade in people who are gonna do our organic farming in urban spaces because we don't like the idea of the potential of cannabis farming. Is that what you were saying there?
well, I think we're saying is that there's a greater benefit to having close organic food than there is to having cannabis. So we'd rather
Totally, I
support
agree.
that.
I don't know if it reads that way though.
Okay,
That's-
could be modified to
yeah.
do that.
Can we just say like
I think
CB3
this is
supports
actually
the-
quite clear though. If you think about it, it says we would not want to see new agriculture uses adversely affecting the housing stock in the district. And then it moves right into giving an example like cannabis. So we're not saying that we want to limit like normal agricultural process that is allowed, but we do say that limiting it to products like that, we don't want to see that. We want to make sure that that's not included. So if folks feel like we should have stronger language that can be more definitive, but I don't think that it is saying that in any way that we would limit other uses
All right,
that are, or now what we could say then that we believe to have detrimental effects like cannabis. Or that have adverse effects like cannabis. That's what I might
yeah,
say.
that's
That's
what.
fine. The language can
Alright.
be changed, but that's not a problem.
And
But
then
the
you
idea
use
is
that.
we do support, like, they're not gonna read this anyway and be like, oh, well, CB3 doesn't want tomatoes, we're not gonna.
Very much.
Give me an S reflux.
Yeah.
I don't want-
So here, this is a no with
No, it's a yes with
Yes, with
modification.
Yes with modification of not cannabis.
Just one point on the limitation in agriculture. They're permitted provided that no offensive odors or dust are created. So the odor is actually in there.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't pick that up.
Okay, thank
Do
you,
we need
George.
any of that on the odor stuff?
No, we don't, we just need to say, give it as an example, right? Like cannabis, you know?
Well, we're putting that in the first sentence.
Yeah, well, you already
That's sufficient.
adopted it, right?
Well, I didn't,
I wouldn't,
what changes?
This is
We didn't agree to it.
We were saying that we would not want to see agriculture use that adversely affect the housing stock.
And just.
In District 7, I forgot what I said now. See?
Yeah, that's fine.
Whatever, we can work
So we
something.
know what we're saying, we're moving in the spirit of that we only want to say, use cannabis as an example of the kind of
Environmental concern.
right, yeah, agricultural,
Yeah.
activity that we do not want to see.
Gotcha.
But if that's the case, just repeat that first sentence.
Which first
In
one?
blue.
I can't see it from
The
here.
CBO votes yes on that cannabis not allowed. Is that what we're trying to do?
Is that the?
No, I don't, I mean, are we
What was the
saying
modification? I'm
that?
sorry.
No.
Yeah, okay, all right, so we good, straw poll?
Yeah. Straw poll, who's voting yes on number 7?
That's a modification.
Yes, with modifications. Yep, that passes.
Okay, 8,
We're gonna-
Proposal to give life sciences companies the certainty to grow. We understand the city's interest in expanding the life science industry, however, I don't understand blocking it out, but the COVID-19 panic demonstrated that having certain unsafe, high containment laboratory in heavily populated areas is not a good idea. What are exactly the risks? And this is something that's actually not explicitly stated by the city or anywhere, right? Where George was saying in his notes that even they won't reveal exactly how bad it could be, right?
They won't tell us where they are.
They won't tell us where they are, and they won't tell us what they're doing.
This includes my comments to you. They weren't supposed to be part of the resolution.
Okay, sorry.
I was like,
I didn't mean.
what are they, I'm like, are we asking
Resolution.
questions? And it was-
I didn't see their comments.
Where I said we have no complaints about dancing, complaints about noise. That was my comment to you. It wasn't supposed to be part of the resolution.
Oh, I wrote that in.
I think we're in number 8 though.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the comment
Right,
that's on,
I'm sorry.
the comment
But I think
on,
the questions are.
I'm sorry, I'm skipping it.
the comment that's on the right might actually replace those questions within the paragraph.
I can't see the comment, but I'm looking at it.
it says we have numerous concerns related to environmental, health, and safety with proximity to high population density.
I think we should reference high containment laboratories, though. That's like, those are the ones that are the problem and that they won't talk about. I mean,
We could add
Are you
specifically
against
relating
this?
to high containment lab.
huh?
Well, maybe you don't know yet. I was asking if you're against that.
High containment laboratories?
No, just the proposal.
Oh,
Number 8,
Yeah.
I think I'm against it based on not only high containment laboratories, but other things. But I think the comment, for the purposes of this, the comment after high containment,
so this is no with modifications, right?
yeah, but we need to change the language because we're asking questions within.
Yeah, that was I think a mistake, though.
well, that's the thing, is they won't tell anybody.
This is.
So then we don't pose it as a question then, I think we pose
Sure,
it as
we
a
could.
statement, right? We just say,
Yeah, turn it to a statement,
Right.
that's fine.
and so I think that's how we can,
Yes.
wordsmith it and move on. And-
Shane,
and-
you had a comment?
Yeah,
No, I just had a question. I don't even know what high containment laboratory is.
So stuff that if it got out could kill lots of people, yes.
Okay, 'cause I mean, we have like a genome center in Tribeca. And there, I don't know if there's anything like dangerous there, but.
we don't know.
They won't tell us.
We don't know.
Yeah, no, it's just an unusual circumstance, and it's like, there's very, very wealthy people that live there. Usually they put those types of things in like communities of color in other cities, so I'm just trying to like parse out like, what's the difference between high containment and non-containment? I don't know. If
So I think
that's
high
where
containment is like,
qualifying-
it's gotta be, contained
Mhm.
with special practices because it's
Okay.
dangerous, hazardous
Okay.
material.
Is it in a
So-
ground floor space or is it in a commercial, what kind of building is it in?
It's, the Genome Center is
Yeah.
a huge building in the middle of a very densely populated, very wealthy neighborhood.
Yeah, but I mean.
They
we're
may
talking
send
about
a
our
lot of
ground
their
floor
stuff out,
Retail
yeah.
spaces mainly, I don't see this
Just so you
happening in our neighborhood.
Yeah, by the way, they also send a lot of those things out.
Yeah, no, I'm using that as an example because I think it's possible for, research facilities to exist in the city safely.
But that's not-
I was trying to put that, like,
Yeah.
trying to convey that in a very short sentence in no place.
Well, so I was just referencing did you read what George wrote in his memo? What George basically said in his memo is that DOMH has actually said it's very dangerous, but the city won't tell you how dangerous it is.
All right, I mean, I take your objection and I hear it. But I do wanna make sure, because I do feel like research is different
Right.
than
A biolab.
a biolab, that's a very different thing. And I would caution us against adding language for research when there are plenty of research facilities and several that are huge ones coming not too far away from us. So I would, yeah.
There was a comment from.
What does it say? Let me know what. It's a research facility, same like a university. And I don't think that's what the spirit of what they're doing here is about.
Okay.
Because they already said that.
That's right.
So is
So-
the proposed language of the.
So the proposed language, can anybody read that? Cause I can't, maybe it's these
It's,
glasses.
I mean, it's also the comment. Box. Comments.
So it
I can't see
says,
the comment box.
you wanna read it? Can you see it?
I can't see the comment box. What's the comment box? say?
Well, you don't have to look at the comment box. The highlight next to it.
All right, so it's, we understand the city's interest in expanding the life sciences industry. However, we have numerous concerns related to environmental health and safety with proximity to high population density. The COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated that having certain uses, unsafe, high constraint laboratories in heavily populated areas is not a good idea. It proves difficult to support a decision when there is a possibility of catastrophe consequences. Or catastrophic consequences, I was like, I know it's not. The public deserves a clear understanding of how this might affect their lives.
Can we take out the reference to COVID-19? You're talking about what happened in China?
Well, no, it could happen anywhere.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, you're citing that as something that, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable putting that in there.
The only reason I added it in there is that I think in general, part of, I mean, as I mentioned before, I think part of this zoning overreach has to do with the result of what happened in COVID-19 and you know, sometimes you use crises to make really stupid changes that nobody wants to have.
Is there a reason why you feel uncomfortable, Steve? Or you just feel uncomfortable?
Well, it's just, it's sort of contested as to like what actually happened for one thing.
Okay,
I feel like it feeds into conspiracy.
so that's a fair point. That's a fair point to make.
Yeah.
So, I think that's right. And Trevor, you were gonna?
I just think it's like, he said, I mean, there's.
You can
different
remove the
opinions.
COVID-19, that's fine. We can wordsmith it, it's fine.
Different opinions about how that's.
Well, perhaps we can say instead that,
So we have a concern about high containment laboratories
yes,
in a
that's
highly
it, that's what I
populated
was
area.
gonna say. All right, so outside of that, are we okay with, this part though? Megan, any other questions, any other feedback? Otherwise, we're gonna move to a straw poll.
So,
We're saying no?
yeah, I'm fine. It's basically, like, I'm supportive of the life sciences, but it's just saying the high containment stuff should be in highly populated areas, right?
Yeah, yes, with modifications.
Mhm.
So
No,
yes,
you
with,
said no.
taking it,
No, no, it's a yes, except for high containment laboratories, I think. That's what I was trying to suggest. High containment is a problem.
that's what I agree with.
Okay.
So you okay with me taking a straw poll on yes? It's yes with the exception of high containment laboratories. Okay.
Okay, great. So this is what I've worked out for us, y'all. It's 8:23, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Some are easy.
Last 10 more.
The last 5 are
We have
easy.
about 10.
The last 5 are really easy.
We're gonna limit
Want me to do
the
a timer?
discussion to each point and no more than 4 minutes. And the last 5 ones, we're gonna speed through them. Otherwise, we're gonna be here past 9, and I don't know what the policy of this office is. Okay,
I'm not kicking you out.
all right.
We got the 10
But if everybody's in favor, and we've already said that once we go through and we do the straw polls, that you all are okay with the spirit of what we've contained in there, and so that we can go back and wordsmith it so long as we're not making any major material changes,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So we should be able to breeze through these pieces. Take us through 9.
Sure, I don't have the modified language though.
This is,
Is there
this?
modified
Want me to
language?
read it? Okay. This is it. Can you see that?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, the modified language, okay, I can read it or you can
You
read it.
can read it?
Sure.
Okay, I was just giving it to you.
Existing complaints focus, so you want to replace the whole thing, Andrea, right? You're saying
These
that?
are just suggestions, we don't have to go with them.
Okay.
I just rewrote them for just like some simplicity, but that's all.
That's actually fine.
Talk about the spirit of it. Right.
I,
Huh?
so I'll have comments, I want to make that.
Okay.
So I mean, basically, I think the spirit of what the comment is that we already have a large number of food and drinking establishments, and there are areas, I can't remember, but so we had serious concerns about having as of right food and drinking establishments in CB3, especially the waiver of environmental concerns for small establishments. So for example, they want to have, so the example I think I gave was that here is that if, let's say we had a bunch of small establishments, but there's like 40 of them in a 500 square foot area, it's no longer small when it's cumulative because that's like 4,000, 5,000 people coming out at the same time. So that's why so the answers would be no. And then we particularly dispute the environmental, the waiver for small spaces, 75 or under.
First of all, I would suggest, because we never get complaints about dancing, that I would suggest that we're not against
Or not, that's fine to say.
opening up the dancing. I do think we should specifically reference Community Board 3 in the last fiscal year had the second highest nightlife commercial noise complaints of 59 boards, and we do not want this to increase.
It's in the whereas, but we can repeat it.
And particularly, there should be enforcement and compliance with commercial zoning.
I'm fine with that.
So overall, we're saying,
We're saying no.
right here, right?
We're saying no to,
We say no to dancing,
no, we're not saying no to dancing.
so then you want to specifically say that.
So this is a yes, right?
Yes.
So I think it's a yes with the conditions that you laid out.
But
Right?
I don't think we really want more nightclubs, though. I mean, this is allowing
I think
nightclubs.
you're saying no, we're not saying no to dancing, but we're saying no
Right,
to the
Yes.
other.
that's what I'm saying.
Just to clarify what Susan said, that the issue isn't dancing, but a dancing and live entertainment venue is very different than an eating and drinking establishment in a restaurant, or even just a regular bar. It's a very different effect on the neighborhood than what we see in SLA all the time. So it's not just necessarily dancing at a bar of 75 people, but it's a dancing and live entertainment venue is a very different effect on the neighborhood. So I'm not sure how you want to word that, but it's not being opposed to dancing, but it's giving them a blanket dancing and live entertainment anywhere is.
I mean, we are quoting the stats and then saying needs enforcement to the existing noise code and comply with commercial zoning.
We could say that we're no to an as of right to open any kind of, no to an as of right nightclubs but not because not because we're against dancing. We're against the fact that we're against it because we already have a saturated neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. And And we could even mention, but we don't have to, there's certain areas already where we consistently oppose brand new liquor licenses, but I don't know if we want to say that.
I
That
think
causes
it's-
submission.
I think 3/4 of what's in there could be left out.
Okay, that's fine. Have to reword it.
I'm opposed to this only because I think it also encompasses live music, and I think we've got a ton of live music places that have been closing down. And I think we are losing funding from the arts, and we need to see more live music, so however the committee wants to vote, but live entertainment is going to include live music. And I would like to see more of that. I would like to see that supported in our neighborhood, not turned down.
In a way, it depends on the size and the venue though, right? And where it is, right? If there's a bunch of, anyway,
That's our time up, guys.
Struggle.
Yeah.
Strappo, who wants to vote? It would be a no vote on this one, correct? The way it's written?
yes.
Yes.
We could wordsmith there, so the plan.
Okay, straw poll on a no vote on number 9.
I don't know.
2, so this means you support
there's two,
not having
right.
places with live music and dancing.
I don't support nightclubs. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think,
They're trying to put a lot of things in there together and it's hard to, we can parse them
Yeah.
out.
so let's just vote on what it is now, so we know this is not the direction we wanna go in, or it is the direction we wanna go in, right?
Yeah.
So what it's proposed now says no overall, right? Is that correct?
Yep.
All right, so where do folks feel, about that? I feel like we have to separate it a little bit.
But there's also a key component of the environmental concern of, they waive all environmental concerns for places that are under 75 people, which is a problem.
Which makes no sense when. you
Makes
have-
zero sense, because they're
15
all
in
in,
a row.
right,
That's all what we have,
Right.
not the majority of what we have is.
exactly.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know if we can put all of these conditions in here.
I did the straw poll on a flat no, and only 2 people supported it, so I think we might need to spend a couple more minutes on this. but,
So, I mean, what are the conditions? I mean, how can we then say, while we support dancing, right, while CB3 supports
Dancing as an accessory.
as an accessory, as a what?
Dancing as an accessory use,
As an accessory use, that's what you call it? Yeah.
so that there can be dancing at a bar, but it's not a dance club and a nightclub.
All right, and what about live music? Because I agree with that too, actually. I think there's not a lot of places, and there's a lot of charm to being able to go into a little bar that has a little guitarist or
It's controlled pretty well with our stipulations.
say it again?
It's controlled pretty well with our stipulations.
The live music?
Yeah.
But here,
It is, but
No, I'm
not.
saying already, we are,
so then how do we use that to factor in how we're gonna vote here? Because what we're saying is, we support dancing
as an accessory.
as an accessory, we support live entertainment as an accessory. Or as,
There can be some live music venues, like Rockwood was a good example of something that was done well.
Right, and that's primary
I love
focus
that
was the
place.
music, and I mean, they had drinking, but the drinking was an accessory to the music, so
Yeah.
like.
But what this change is going to make it a blanket, so we
right,
don't wanna say.
that's right.
And it's an as of right blanket too.
Right, so that's what I
We
think
can't
we should
oppose
be
it,
careful
basically.
with. Rockwood, you're right, was a primary use, and the bar and the food was accessory to the music. And that's fine, but we don't want that as of right in a residential side street.
So can I ask, what does this might be a
Right.
George question, what does as of right mean in this situation? Does it mean they can have live music anywhere, including a residential side street?
Schedule
Like,
shows.
right now,
Yes,
We're-
scheduled shows, covers, live music.
Do whatever.
And,
Right.
yeah, in a residential side street that is currently grandfathered, yes.
Okay, so that's,
we don't need that.
that's a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
so that's what we're saying, all of those things would be as of right,
We
but
do
right
not
now.
want it to be us.
Okay, so then I'm gonna,
So,
knowing that information, do you wanna take the straw poll again on the
Yeah, but
no?
let's restate what we're voting on.
Okay,
Okay.
so it would be a no on number 9.
With no conditions? We're not even gonna say anything about dancing?
No, I think you should have conditions. I think you should say it's an accessory and in compliance with.
So can we
commercial
say
zoning.
no, but we support, but we support dancing?
Or we would support dancing as accessory and
Or
not
acoustic.
music that is compliant to commercial zoning.
Well, we'd also want to state that they would actually enforce noise complaints, like we want enforcement,
Right.
right? And that we want enforcement of, we don't want exceptions to environmental, and we want enforcement,
So it's no with condition.
yes.
Okay, great. Everybody?
I'm fine with that. No with conditions.
And then, yeah, wordsmith.
Okay, that passes.
And Art space is required to be soundproof when they have live
But you
music.
got the spirit of the
Yeah.
thing, right?
you know?
Right, however you wanna
He's trying to put stipulations on SLA, but.
Right.
No, and particularly with the way they've written this, if you're below 75,
That's fine.
do whatever the hell you want.
And below 75 are these old.
What's number 10?
Yeah, they're old residential
What's number
buildings.
10?
All right, thank you, Trevor, for keeping us on task. Number 10.
Create more opportunities for amusements to locate. Largely don't see this affecting CB3. I think the only thing that we should actually oppose is for a large space. And there's an exception. They wanted to go to a BSA special permit process, which means it's not public and you really can't do anything about it. I think in general, I think we talked about this last week, we don't want those. We want CPC special permits that allow the city council to vote on final approval. And that's actually for a bunch of ones coming later as well.
So what would I vote with?
No,
You basically you'd be voting yes. No, entertainment's actually okay, the way they've written it up. Except for the exception of
The BSA process.
the BSA process for
CPC.
large, I think it's over 10,000 square feet, which probably wouldn't affect us, but it might, they found an outdoor space or something, or who knows, but
well,
I think,
mean, anyway.
I think in general, we should be opposing the fact that they don't ask a local neighborhood what should go in their neighborhood. That's kind of what this is.
But we're saying yes.
Yes,
Except
except
It must
that we
be
want a
CPC,
CPC.
CPC special use permit.
as opposed to BSA.
All right, sure, Paul.
I'm okay with that.
I'm
Okay
actually
with that.
opposed to 10 completely.
Huh?
I'm opposed to 10, like, just completely.
I am too,
Okay.
but no with exceptions.
Okay,
Are we saying no?
number 10,
Wait,
straw poll.
I thought we were saying yes with exception.
We are. But I'm agreeing with,
Oh, you're saying for you.
for the purposes of this, yes with exception. But
Okay, so straw poll, are we, number 10, yes with exceptions? Yes, passes.
Okay, great. 11, ooh, we're doing good time, come on, y'all. I'll bring a treat, I know.
Okay, enable entrepreneurship with modern rules for home-based businesses. And so CBC supports entrepreneurship as a means for some of the most vulnerable to run a business from home. However, we do have concern about home-based occupations and seek modifications. First, significant foot traffic and limited access and hours will be bothersome. This is not only a nuisance, it also causes a safety risk for residents. Other cities have limited the number of home business visits. We concur with a limit. This makes even more sense to limit visits with the advent of video conferencing and other private public meeting spaces. Like WeWork spaces, like you don't need with video conferencing and WeWork spaces, you don't, a lot of these professional, anyway, I'll get to it later.
Right.
WeWork is dying. Second, we want to ensure that the residence is a residence that pays taxes in New York City. I think maybe it was taken out if they have to prove it's a prime residence. I have that in here somewhere, I thought. We have housing crisis and foresee the abuse of converting a residence into a business entirely. There it is. Thus, entrepreneurs will be required to demonstrate it's a primary residence, providing proof of taxes filed from the residence. We also support continuing the limitation of square footage designed for the business. Most successful entrepreneurs cannot afford to buy a commercial building, or they could buy an apartment initially as a residence, over time may expand to a second apartment. Again, where we'd be losing housing stock for something that became that. And the impact of home businesses on other residents and mixed-use buildings should require an environmental impact study. And this actually, part of this came from the EDCC. I think it's correct. This is why I highlighted it. We presume a considerable number of startup maker businesses operate from home. Most keep low profile and will make conflict with their neighbors. These businesses are often deadline oriented. Once this type of operation becomes as of right in a residential building, will all night sewing machines, woodworking, machine milling, not become a source of conflict with neighbors. Finally, we're concerned that many possible occupations, they would have leased commercial space if they were neighborhood service, for example, barber, beauty shops, kennels, veterinary, licensed professional occupations, and others, you know, we would be losing commercial spaces on our city streets, as, you know, I could write that better, but I think a lot of those, like, would be places that would lease space on, you know, on avenues or side streets.
Okay,
So it's a no with modifications, I think.
In the spirit for me, it's no with modifications.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I also don't mind a no.
I get nervous that it's gonna be like another Airbnb, commercial Airbnb. Okay.
let's do it.
Okay, so can we take a straw poll on voting on number 11, no with modifications? Okay, that passes.
Okay. Next is 12.
So.
It's a quick one, I hope.
Yeah, it is a quick one. So basically what it is just introduce design rules that ensure that buildings contribute to their surroundings. And they're trying to normalize the way things are in the streetscape and whatnot. The only thing that it would do is it would actually ban, right, this is correct, George, it would actually ban residential lobbies and the use of ground floor residences. Potentially.
It wouldn't ban, okay, so it would limit the size of residential lobbies on the ground floor. And it would ban residences that were within the distance of the street. So it would still be possible to have a rear facing residence if it was a deep lot. But yeah, you wouldn't be able to have a ground floor residence facing the street.
Yeah, so I don't know if we're against that or not, but in general, I thought that, you know, we would not want to necessarily.
Your last point, there's a housing crisis.
We're against, I mean, isn't the whole point of having a
No.
vacant space that's
No.
vacant for more than 2 years that it hopefully returns to residential? If you can't have residential on ground floor, then that makes that completely null and void.
Okay, so sorry, that would be in commercial districts only. So in
Yes.
commercial districts only, you can have housing, but this would prohibit dwelling units on the ground floor facing the street. The idea is that they want to keep a active commercial street, and dwelling units deaden commercial activity. And so they would prohibit them, and they'd also limit the size of lobbies, residential lobbies.
So the commercial, ground floor commercial residences are where you have noise problems, so by eliminating the street, what?
So
By
that's not-
eliminating the street facing, you're getting rid of a conflict between the residents. And they could face the back, which is not.
I don't think we should limit residential in any way. Like if there's any possibility of
I mean,
having
I don't,
residential.
so it's really
right?
just, are we getting a lot of complaints that
I mean, it's.
say we shouldn't do this? Like, I mean, is
We
this
don't
just
have
an
no
aesthetic
complaints
thing?
about this,
It
but I'm gonna
feels,
say, we have tremendous amount, again, second 59 words, about the bedrooms above commercial.
No, but this isn't about above,
It's,
it's
but this is right
ground
on the
floor.
street, this would be, this would.
I mean, I don't think it really affects us in a sense, but at the same time, it kind of hamstrings you, doesn't it? If you decide, like, let's say you have a building where, you know, commercial's not working, and you decide to have a residence, it would hamstring you, right, George?
That is correct.
So, I mean, it's not an important point, we don't have to really get
Yeah,
into
and
it, but.
I don't feel strongly about it either, I was just saying that.
I don't feel
that
strongly,
is
I
a
just think
conflict that we deal with all the time.
Yeah, but, I mean, we don't have a strict commercial district like that, you know?
No, we don't, but I also think landlords will likely to try and do whatever they can to fit in another place that might not be the most,
But don't you think that if we limit that, if they're gonna expand their lobbies, how are they gonna do this? What's gonna be there instead?
Then we
Retail
should do
space,
it.
it's gonna be vacant space? So if the idea is to incentivize foot traffic, the only way to do that is not by having an empty commercial lobby. That doesn't incentivize anything for me, especially when there's no security guard. I don't even feel safe. I'm like, why is this lobby here taking up all this space? It could have been housing. So if there's, I don't see, if they're not saying like, turn it into this, I think we should say no.
joke was just.
Oh, yeah, landlords don't have any incentive to make huge lobbies anyway. They want the most bang for their buck in their space, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, I support how, I like the last sentence, there's a housing crisis.
There we go.
Vote pay.
So it's yes with
Oh, but a straw poll,
Yeah.
on voting, yes, on number 12. We support the regulations, yes, so that's a yes.
Yeah, but we don't support the elimination of ground floor,
residential.
right? So if we say yes, then we're saying we support that.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, to say no.
We can say yes with modifications.
modifications.
Why do we have to say yes? Why can't we just say no? What else?
Because the general principle of this is making the streetscapes that look normalized, that look, you don't have really weird streetscapes that have strange buildings and like,
Do we think they look strange now?
there are some that the city's planning gave an example of strange streetscapes.
I mean, I wouldn't give them a yes on this. I wouldn't. That's me. I would say no all around. And they can figure that out. This is too vague. And there's not enough language in here or enough meat to tell us what would happen.
And it's scary to.
And it's very scary to me. And I would err on the side of saying no, because I think it's, you know, if we can't do our due diligence and really understand, then we're irresponsible in supporting something like this. That's me. That's my opinion.
No, because of lack of detail.
I think that's real. And we have no idea what the impact of this is gonna be, what they're gonna replace the spaces with, nothing.
Yeah.
Imagine that vacant spaces all on the first floor.
Can I ask George to weigh in on this? Because I don't really recall what the details were of this.
Sure. So the urban design rules will require transparency, which means windows on the ground floor, so you can't have a blank wall. It'll limit curb cuts, it'll limit parking. So in addition to residences, you won't be able to have parking on the first floor within that area, so that you have areas for storefronts. They don't want to break up the storefronts with residential lobbies, residences, parking areas. The idea is that they want a continuous length of storefronts as much as they can, because you could still have a residential lobby, but it's limited in size. And so that's the intention. The intention is to essentially have a nice place to walk with glass street wall, and places to go to that create activity. And so parking, residences, lobbies are all limited.
This is in commercial corridors, basically.
In commercial districts, yes, and residential districts, this doesn't apply.
Yeah.
So it's in commercial districts that have residential.
That's right.
Correct.
I'll make Damaris on this. I think it's a no. I'm afraid of restricting any residential anywhere. I think if there is a potential building in a commercial district that has an opportunity to turn over to residential, and they're like, I'm sorry, this is a commercial district, you can't have. It's messing up with our streetscape. Like, I'd be like,
So can we straw poll?
yeah,
Vote no on that?
okay. Straw poll, no on 12. Is this 12? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What? 5. Okay. Passes. Okay, good.
13.
Proposed complex between auto repair shops and pedestrians. I think we talked about this extensively, and basically I think it's a no. because it's very location based, right? And if there were to be an exception, again, we wouldn't want this ESA special permit. We want to be a public process using the CPC special permit, where the city council could finalize the vote.
So what would we be saying here?
So basically, we'd be saying no, because like literally it's,
Because they're proposing to do
they're
exactly.
proposing in basically an as of right. They're proposing an as of right, like places that are currently there have an as of right to expand 50%, even if it doesn't make sense. I believe, and it's also, they can, what else is it, George? There's the as of right 50%.
Are we?
Well, it's not as of right, it's a special permit that allows for these uses to locate in areas where they can't now.
Right.
And again, it's the issue that it's another way forward to locate automotive uses in the neighborhood where you can't now. And they're really hard to locate now, right? So this is a way, if there's a demand, it's a path forward.
Attorney.
One's a problem, you said it was a three?
Yeah, the one
Yep.
that's a problem, it's on Woodford Street, Attorney Street.
Is three for the size of this neighborhood, do we know adequate? Do we have any kind of information? Do we know if they're busy? Do we know if they're overburdened or cars?
We discussed this a lot at the last meeting,
So
and
what-
basically there are very few locations where it could actually exist
Okay, yeah,
without a conflict with residents of parking and other situations.
all right.
But the
I
issue,
think one's under the bridge, right? That one's
there's
not.
two of them. The issue here is, do we allow them to basically expand 50% without going through the process?
Public
No,
process, right?
No.
Public process. So we're
No.
saying we want, just like we did in the other
Yes.
one, the CPC
yes,
special.
yeah, so we're saying no,
Yes, we're
Yes.
saying
Correct.
no,
okay,
unless special.
right.
No unless special permit, okay, straw poll on no unless special permit on number 13. Passes.
All right, 14.
14 is encourage safe and sustainable deliveries of micro distribution. We echo the concern stated in response to proposal 3. While a limited number of micro distribution sites might improve traffic problems, many micro distribution locations would alter the character of the neighborhood. They would compete with other commercial spaces in the neighborhood, not contribute to foot traffic, not have a retail component, and exacerbate the demise of local stores selling goods.
So this proposal encompasses exactly what?
They're allowed to open.
What are they asking us to do, they wanna change the language to encourage,
To allow all these micro distribution places under a certain size, under 2,500 square feet in some places, and,
So it's not the same size everywhere?
what are the sizes?
It's 2,500 square feet in the neighborhood commercial C1 and C2. And it's 5,000 square feet in the C4 through C6 on the ground floor and up to 10,000 square feet on the second floor. My understanding is however, none of these places would use the second floor. It's just because of the difficulty of migrating up there. It's really about 2,500 or 5,000.
Doesn't Whole Foods use your second floor?
Huh?
Whole Foods second floor is an Amazon distribution center.
Maybe
A
then.
whole section of it, yeah, and they have a whole section of it empty full of nothing. Anyway, that's another.
Yeah, so we have a second floor, but it costs us no, it costs us absolutely nothing.
Is it a pickup location or
Turn
is
this
it
back
a?
to Amazon.
I don't know if you could, they distribute from there and you can return there.
Yeah, it's just the Amazon
think
drop
that's
off and
separate.
pickup, that's all. No, but they rent the space in, they do it with Whole Foods.
Well, that's not a problem. I mean.
Yeah, what were you gonna say, Steve? I heard
Yeah, I was
you
gonna
say-
say it's convenient. I mean, people wanna, I've returned stuff there and, if people don't wanna get their stuff stolen in their
Right.
building.
But that's different because it actually has foot traffic,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it actually draws people to come in and do stuff, and they also shop at Whole Foods or whatever.
So I don't know the whole thing, but some micro distribution is going to mean that we don't have large trucks coming in and going up and down the streets, if I'm understanding correctly.
Well, yes and no, right? They still have to keep constantly supplying these small spaces, right?
We have, I don't know, we have a lot less trucks now, you know.
Right, so I'm saying, it's like, it's trying to,
And they use, like Amazon now uses the cargo box with the
Exactly.
trailers.
Last
instead of
mile.
trucks.
Is that what it's called? Last 5 miles?
yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, basically, I think you said this in your notes, George, right? Like, this was a big problem in 2021, but the problem has kind of disappeared with the lack of so many trucks.
Anecdotally, yes, I don't have data on.
I mean, in my neighborhood, you see a lot of guys just going around with carts, you know?
That's what we see there.
And that's, so it's completely changed, they've adapted, you know? And that's probably cheaper for Amazon or whomever, you know? Than
Well,
actually
this doesn't
leasing the
limit
space.
these businesses, it just limits them having their, so like, there's one on Rivington, right?
Yeah.
Between Clinton and Suffolk, and GoPuff is there.
Yeah.
Right, so that's a great example. You can see everything that's happening there. The delivery people are usually sitting outside somewhere with their bikes, that's a little bit of a nuisance, but not enough to make me go crazy. So spaces like that, and there are, I don't know how many spaces we have like that, but Orchard Street, there's been, and along Houston Street, there are some spaces that are large enough that it seems to me have trouble with tenants, so these folks would probably, they could fit in those places. So I think it could be more prevalent than we think, and I think there's good and bad with this, right? Like, I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna like, you know, ship me my groceries, please, because I don't have time.
Let me ask George a question. George, what was their intent here with the phrase micro distribution? Because we all immediately think GoPuff and Getter and places like that, but what do you think they're?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's what they call the dark stores, using retail space, traditional retail space for a mini warehouse where the public has no access. And there's a storing of goods there for very short periods of time for local delivery. That's the concept.
The city wants more of that?
Yes.
Yeah, well, okay, so let's in terms of context, it's happening already. And
Right.
the Department of Buildings has issued a building bulletin which permits it. It permits it at a slightly smaller size, and it requires it to be open to the public for at least nominally, to essentially, do some gymnastics around the rules. And this is a way of formalizing the rules. And this is like, they should do this, right? You shouldn't live with the building bulletin like that forever. And so it's good that they're doing it. It's just whether they got it right or not. Is it the right size? Is 2,500 square feet, is a fairly big space. Is that too big? 5,000 square feet, is that too big? Or,
Problem is, we don't have any data to tell us what would be appropriate, right? Or what would be too big, or what would be too small, or what could be used, so.
That's fair.
Right, I think, it's our job then, I think, without any information to say no. And then to say, possibly, no, and then we think that, they have to go back and, work out, more details that would actually encourage, possibly, we could say, some of the street stuff and, like the other proposals that you were just mentioning. That they said about allowing some entrance, some access to the space, or somehow I think what we should say, there's not enough information here. We appreciate that the city is looking at this, but it needs a lot of work, and so therefore we should say no. That's
We
basically
do
what I'm
want
saying.
regulations, but
Right.
we're not there yet as
Right.
to what they are.
That's what I
Yeah,
think.
I mean, we don't want them en masse, basically. I mean, a few, okay, probably fine, but like once you say it's okay, how many are we gonna wind up with?
Right, and it really will put on local
Right.
grocery stores out
So
there.
we should say no.
Yeah,
Like I
exactly.
find the Amazon, to be honest, I find it really convenient.
Right, but if they were Amazon grocery and they had
That's
refrigeration,
allowing public access,
Right.
And that's over there too.
and a second floor, so it's not a dark store.
wait, so that's another concern, actually, Greg, you brought this up. What if they actually started refrigerating stuff and it was Amazon grocery?
But I think what we're already saying is, we're going into this discussion, we're already saying no. Right, we're saying no, that they have to go back and they have to work this out, so
I think so.
That's fine.
So we can just move on.
Right,
So just-
so straw poll on, no you need further details from the city.
Oh, well, yes, or the city needs to go back to the drawing board with this one.
That wouldn't be modifications.
Their hand up.
I think we should know, but we should still write something, I mean, we don't have to. In the spirit of the rest of this, process, we've been saying no and then saying why we say no.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think we
we
say
can
no
relax.
because it's not enough, it lacks detail, it lacks, data, it lacks,
What he's saying is there's 4 boxes,
Specific
yes,
plan.
no, yes with, or no with, so. it's-
So we're not doing that. If you're saying no with or yes with modification.
we're saying no.
This
Or
is
you
no,
have-
no,
or you
we're
can't
explaining
say
why,
yes.
but we're doing that in this. So
Right,
this is just a
right.
flat no.
Flat
Right,
no,
it's a
okay.
flat no.
But I'm gonna say, I think your comments are actually the most important part, because if you wanna make changes, I mean, how likely is it that they're.
But can't we say no and still
And we're
include the
still
comments
explaining.
in the floor,
And still what?
and still include the comments?
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's the most important.
right.
But it wouldn't be no with modifications.
No, it would just be no,
That's
and then
right.
these
But
would
you
be our
can-
comments.
And this is why.
And this is
Yeah,
why.
it's an explanation, not a
Right.
modification.
Right, it's an explanation, not a
Okay.
modification.
Straw poll and voting no on this guy. Yep, passes.
Okay, y'all. We can do this.
Okay, so 15, yeah, these are gonna get fast, these are all pretty easy. Proposal to facilitate local commercial space on residential campuses. So again, we had a discussion about this previously, where we said we thought the residents should have the right to vote on this. And we wanted to make sure that it wasn't a BSA special permit, or we wanted to make sure that the city council again had the right to say yay or nay, so it's a CPC special permit. So-
So just to make this clear, when we talk about campuses, we're talking about spaces like the public housing campuses, spaces like Village View that has a campus, places like
First
even.
Kind of,
Huh?
first houses, kind of.
But that's public housing, so yeah, so.
That's an example.
Yeah, as an, even, a little bit like even Haven, Magic Towers, I mean, I don't know where they would put it there, but.
Skytown or not private?
Skytown, but Skytown's not in our area, but all the way, yes, yes,
Okay.
Skytown, they have businesses on the outskirts, though, they don't have them inside the campus. I personally would love to see that on NYCHA, but
Well, this
Well,
doesn't, this
I
doesn't
think it
permit
would
it.
be a convenience as long as it's like a grocery store somewhere.
yeah.
None of that is, we're not saying no, we're saying.
No, I know, I'm just saying that that's what I would like to see.
I have a question. For this one, I had thought that for the last meeting, what they had said is that a CPC special permit where the city council would vote on final approval wouldn't make sense to add here because it's a zoning issue right now, not necessarily like deciding what would be there. So it'd be like by right or through the CPC process, right, that they would just be allowed to approve a commercial space. It's not necessarily what would be added there.
George, there's a BSA process for this, right?
Well, this is a CPC authorization. So
Right, which is public.
It does not involve the BSA. An authorization is like a special permit, except it has no city council approval. They will ask you your opinion about it, but CPC will not hold a public hearing on it. So it's like your concern about it not being public. It is, it is public, but it doesn't involve the city council. And there is no hearing at the CPC level.
Well, so what about community engagement? And I guess if there's no leverage, then how do we?
By asking for a CPC special permit.
That's the only leverage we can get as city council.
But to clarify, is the CPC special permit for whatever specific commercials is gonna fill that space, or is it just giving the zoning approval for it?
That's right. It would just be the zoning approval for it. It wouldn't be for the actual use, though very often they come in
Together.
when they do an application, they have a tenant and they come in with it, but that doesn't always happen. It's not required.
I'm just wondering if it would cause red tape for something that would benefit a lot of these residential campuses.
It may, and I see your point, but it doesn't, the other way doesn't give the residents a say at all.
Yeah, it's not up to us to determine what benefits residents. It's up to residents to
So
determine what
with
benefits.
the
So that's the clearest answer I'm gonna give you. If residents can't have a say in this, it's, I think, our job to say no.
Some of the red tape is gonna be involved whenever you need certain approvals. But this approval, if it goes to a CPC special permit, gives the residents and the council member a say in that particular zoning area. If we do not have that, then they have no say. Is it red tape? A little bit, but sometimes you need a little bit for protection.
But I just remember from the last meeting, them saying that it might not actually like achieve what we're trying to do here, that they wouldn't, you know, within the zoning amendment, accept something like this.
I'm not sure though what your objection is right now. So, I mean, are you concerned that if we support this, or if we support this with conditions? I'm not really clear.
Yeah, that we might be by voting no on this and asking them to
We're not-
add something that wouldn't be possible to add within the zoning amendment.
But I thought we were.
No, they can do the
yes.
CPC special, right, George? They can
Yes,
have,
you could do a special permit, but as far as, you know, saying what type of use it's going to be, that's a fair criticism. They're not gonna be saying this must be a grocery store.
well, what we should say, but I think the modification we wanted to make was we thought the residents should be able to take a vote.
Yes, and I think what she's saying is something different. She's saying
That
that,
they wouldn't necessarily have to allow, but we think that's what the way it should work.
No, I
No.
think my concern in this point was, I don't remember if it was Connor from somebody else's office, they had mentioned that if we put in something about city council approval, that wouldn't be accepted as part of the zoning amendment, because it just wouldn't fit as to what we're deciding right
but
now.
city council has to approve usually ULURP, so it's not such an uncommon practice.
Okay, and
But-
it makes sense within the context of the zoning amendment to include that as a
Yes,
zoning law.
yes.
And George is shaking his head.
And he's saying yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would agree.
Yeah, I agree too. Sorry, this is Connor.
Thank you. All right, so we're saying yes with these conditions. Great.
Yes with conditions on 15, can we get a straw poll?
Oh,
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
perfect.
This is sort of the same thing. Again, it's the creative process for allowing new corner store in residential areas. And, you know, they list in there that, you know, it technically has to go through, you know, an environmental review and community board approval, but again, they can override the community board, obviously. And they actually, again, want CPC authorization that's not public, that's not, you know, particularly public. Again, I think we should recommend the CPC special uses, CPC special permit. You know, give the community an actual say in what's happening as opposed to just something happening.
let me ask George, this would likely not affect this? I mean, I'm just not familiar.
Yeah, you don't have very many residential districts that have corner lots. You have to have a residential district with a corner lot, and I'm not sure that you're gonna have any, or if you do, it's gonna be very small. I can
No,
tell you.
we have some corner lots, like, I mean, right near Seward Park, there's an empty corner lot, like, it's not used, I mean.
An empty corner lot that's not a commercial district already? Because most of your avenues are already zoned commercial.
It's a commercial
It's
street.
commercial, right?
So.
A lot of, in CV3, there's a lot, in the residential districts, there's a lot of
You're right.
commercial overlay.
Yeah, but there are some, like on the NYCHA campuses, it's another way of putting this on, you know, I think of the very eastern part of the district. There are a lot of residential areas with no commercial overlay. Yeah, so there would be places to put this, for sure.
Where do we not have commercial overlay?
So I'm looking down here along
but-
Attorney Street and Ridge Street on the far east side.
There
Suffolk
are-
Street,
R7, right?
yeah, they're all R7 too. That's
They
right.
all have.
I mean, a lot of them have commercial overlay, right, though, so they would already be able to do this.
A lot of them do, most of them do, just these few that I'm picking out.
Say again, George?
Just these few that I'm picking out, you know, again, Attorney Street, Suffolk Street, Ridge Street, So there are a few, statins. Sorry,
So we're identifying, George, that there are a few, in other words, we're saying,
it would affect you.
it would affect us, right? So how,
Yep.
so do we feel like the effect is negative?
I'm gonna say those streets, I think, have a lot of non-conforming commercial already, but I don't know, I have no idea, I didn't.
So the only thing so the reason I would say no was because basically, again, the process doesn't really have to listen to the community. Again, it's the only thing it comes down to is what's the approval process? Is it a BSA permit or a CPC permit, CPC authorization, or is it something the city council could have a say in?
Can I ask George, does a corner store mean you could put a 4 AM bar there?
In theory, yes. They would be use group 6, not an office. So it would be eating and drinking or a corner store, yeah.
Mark. So then you're saying, well, we have these residential streets where we're now gonna put possibly a 4 AM nightlife on the end of a residential street.
So can we, we're following the trend with this, can we just say we prefer CPC permit, which is in
That's
the line?
what basically I'm saying.
I know, I'm just trying to.
So are we saying,
And no nightlife?
we're saying,
Well, we would want a special permit,
so,
and a special permit, you could say no. Which is not.
And then
With a special permit that has.
Yeah, if the permit's denied, it's zoning, it's not, has nothing to do with liquor license.
so wait, what are we saying?
The same as the last paragraph.
Yes, with conditions? That's
Or
what
no,
the last one.
Or no with conditions.
No, with conditions.
Can I ask a question, George? How much, what's the cost of getting a special permit typically? Do you have an idea of like how expensive it is for a property owner to do it? Because I think this is really intended more for like really low density neighborhoods in the outer boroughs where there's not, you can't walk to a store easily, you have to get in your car. And so, corner store is convenient for people and it's not a bad thing necessarily. But if you have to spend $50,000 to get a special permit, you're probably not gonna do, I don't know. Just thinking about property owners who might want to.
I mean, listen, people complain about the cost of these things, and, getting into the mid 5 figures or, definitely into the 5 figures is what you'd expect for even something small. But I know they're also trying to streamline these authorizations to make them easier. So I wouldn't necessarily want to, rely too much upon that because that's the reason that they want to do these authorizations to make it easy.
But again, the problem is that they're using a hammer. Every part of the city is being treated exactly the same, which is an issue. I mean, I'd be happy to support it in Jackson Heights or whatever, but
I feel like in districts that are like R5 and below, this probably is fine.
right, but that's not what
We're in more dense neighborhoods where we already have a lot of.
All right, so I think we've had a fair amount of discussion about it. So are you all also supporting the notion of no? So we can take a straw poll vote? Is there any other are there any other questions?
No with modifications?
Yep.
Straw poll and no with modifications on number 16. Hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay.
All right, we're moving into number 17.
Okay, so this is the proposal again to rationalize the waiver process for business with adaptation and growth. And I don't think it would, I think George kind of said it probably wouldn't affect us, but if it did affect us, it could be really, they could kind of do whatever they want, right? To make a really big change.
Oh, right, yes, this one, yep. Yeah, I mean, it only affects non-residential districts, right? So this would just be in the, the C4 through C8 districts, right? So the heavy duty non-residential districts where you don't have very many of those. But yes, you do have some.
We do have some.
Yes, and this would allow for a waiver through an authorization process as opposed to a special permit.
Right, so again, it's like we're opposed to it because, again, there's no, yeah.
No with modifications, right? Okay, any discussion? If not, we're gonna do straw poll.
Straw poll number 17, no with modifications. Passes.
Oh, that's home stretch, people.
All right, and then 18, create a new special zoning district in case they want to. And they haven't even said what it's gonna be, but it would be something like Hudson Yards, right, or something like that, George?
Essentially, they're high coverage commercial and manufacturing districts. So that they are governed by exposure complaint and they have, not much in the way of yard requirements. And they have defined them in a completely separate application. They're all defined and they go from low density to very, very high density like Hudson Yards.
Right, but it wouldn't be in our area, right? It would be.
They haven't been mapped anywhere, right? So they're a tool that they may use in the future. And if they do use it, it would go through ULURP.
Could it go on our waterfront? Could they do that?
Absolutely. They can go anywhere.
There you go.
So should we also ask for,
It would go through ULURP anyway, right? George, it would go through ULURP anyway.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And again, it goes from 2 FAR up to 15 FARs. They have there's a lot of different categories within them.
I think as long as it goes through ULURP, it's fine. I don't think we need.
okay,
It's a scary proposal, but
it's a scary proposal, but
we can do whatever we want, is what it says.
yeah, I think that's what.
Say no.
I found it helpful to think of it like now is your chance to help refine what you think a good additional district could look like for the city, like the details of it, and then later is when you get to decide more about where it goes.
I feel like that's a whole other meeting.
That's a whole.
Great way to think about it.
Yeah, I just don't know how to have that conversation.
So should we just say no?
I think we should say yes. No, I thought it was a yes.
Yes?
Because that's what we're doing anyway, so it's gonna come in front of it's gonna come on our laps anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, we want the possibility that's
They can
something
create something.
good.
All right.
Yeah.
I see your point.
We can say yes, but we have unintended consequences. I mean, we're concerned about unintended consequences or something, I mean.
Or just reinforce, that, yes, but it should continue to go through, a standard community and ULURP process to ensure that there's proper oversight, and opportunity for the public to weigh in.
Yeah. I get a straw poll, a yes on 18, with some explanation. Okay, I see the word. Okay, it passes.
Okay. One more vote. So let's go through this now. Last vote is overall, right?
Yeah, the last one is overall, we have the 4 options. Check.
So how many no's do we actually have here? We had no, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We had, so basically 2/3 were no's. And the ones that were yeses were basically yes with modifications.
Well, a lot of our no's are modifications.
Yeah.
Yeah, that as well.
I think there's kind of a gray area between the no's and the yeses.
Yes.
So
Right.
what is our vote right now?
What?
What is our vote right
What
now?
are we voting on?
Yes or no, or yes with modifications, or no with modifications for the overall resolution,
For everything, for the entire.
for the overall.
So with 2/3, it has to be no.
No
modification.
modifications.
Yes, I agree.
Are we, straw poll, or no, this is an actual vote, or do you want to do a straw poll?
I
first?
think
This
we
is
can
an
do
actual
vote.
To accept, and the overall vote is,
So
it's just one vote, right?
Well, you need to vote that you're accepting all your straw polls you
Oh, yeah.
haven't
Right.
voted on. So you would want to vote to accept all your straw poll decisions plus.
So let's do that, let's do that one.
Let's do them
So
separately.
let's,
or whatever.
A vote to
accept all of the straw poll decisions that we made during this meeting. I vote to approve. Okay, everybody, yes.
Okay, so we all
And
said
then the
yes,
next
so,
vote?
Yeah, so what you essentially did is you voted on those yeses and nos and you just.
Like an actual vote, yeah.
And so now, we're gonna vote
Oh,
yes.
did we need to do a straw?
Now we do a separate
You don't need to do a strong vote. Yes, now
Now
you
you
need to
do
vote on the whole.
a real vote on the overall, which Trevor recommended that we vote no with modifications because everything has modifications. So that would be the vote on the table.
And overall,
I
I'm
second
not
it.
down with it.
All right, so we're gonna need a second for that.
I second.
Okay, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay,
So can I ask
Abstain
before you
from-
go? Next steps.
Yes,
So we
please.
have a lot of rewriting. Thursday night is the exec. We have to have the vote sheet on the exec. And we wanna do two kinds of things. We wanna capture what you guys have done, and we wanna do wordsmithing. So what is gonna be the process for?
so Carl has been taking notes into the form and
That was only for the first.
okay, so we don't have any notes.
Well, we said we would, just do the,
You have all
Yes.
the.
John was taking minutes.
He is.
I am, but it's not specific on all the stuff.
Right,
It's
we
just
were
yes or
making edits
no.
while we were working,
I
so.
think, yeah, 'cause he made the edits.
It's just the
Um,
general straw poll
Yeah.
was not the edit. I didn't include the edit.
So the edits are in here all the way through?
For the first half and then a lot of the stuff afterwards, there weren't.
He was catching the spirit for the second half.
Yeah.
They weren't really commenting on the language.
Yeah, we
Alright.
weren't commenting on the language, but we included,
So I'm gonna say, I don't mind working on the wordsmithing, but I want you guys to say what you voted on. I don't want to interpret, and I wasn't even here for the whole thing. You
every,
know,
we
so
have
if
the
you
vote
could
for
if you could capture yes with and a few things, I'm willing
Yeah,
to.
so I did that in the minutes.
And I have that edited into the document.
Okay, so do you wanna send that to us now, and then we will go through tomorrow and send it back to you?
I have that on this computer, so we have it already.
Well,
these
then
minutes?
John also
Oh, okay.
has it. I want his.
Well, I've got the minutes. I didn't.
He's
Copy all
gonna
of
send that, you're gonna send
Send
this.
what you have.
Yes, you're gonna
Yeah,
send
you guys
this,
can
he's
send what
gonna
you have.
send
It's your
that.
Oh,
computer.
John, it's sorry.
Your computer.
Don't erase it,
I'm not planning on erasing.
save it.
I just
Make
hit
sure it's
save.
saved.
Okay, so
Oh, wait, it saved it.
we
as the template,
voted,
but I
we
should
have a
save it as
process. We're gonna send it to you now. Carl has the other piece, he's gonna send that, oh, it's on your computer. And then you're gonna wordsmith it, send it back to us tomorrow, so that that will be the
Try
version that you
right.
will, right, as
Send
best
it
as you
back to
can.
you by.
That will be the version that you will present at exec on Thursday.
Well, after I get it, okay.
Right,
It
that's
says
what I
that
mean,
to sign
right,
in,
after
just
you
say
get
that.
our okay, all right. And then,
How do I save it without sending it?
If worst comes to worst, I would like to have it on the bill sheet so that you can look at it. If worst comes to worst and we don't, then I can say by Friday, we have to send out the vote sheet. So if we don't get it done Thursday night, we have Friday morning as a backup.
Okay.
We'll try not to use that.
okay,
Done.
are we done?
Next is housing.
What's the time?
They will not, so we
They
asked.
don't have a time,
What?
they don't really, they want, the housing proposal, I've already met with them at my other hat. So, and they're. So,
That's kind of interesting because they would not present to CD3 next month.
they won't,
Correct.
because they're not ready, that's why.
But they're meeting.
Yeah, of course. I-
Because they were showing me, some of them are showing us like what they're thinking, and so we've given them considerable feedback about like a public process outside of this process. We weren't able to do that with the, carbon neutrality proposal. We weren't able to really do that in a real way with this. And we feel like with the housing piece, we have some capacity that we can, support in holding other public discussions to ensure that people are really weighing in or we're getting as much feedback as we can, so we'll come and talk to you too about that, which is separate than what I'm doing here, but it's the community board may want to be involved, and I don't know how that would look. So I'll talk to the two.
So while I have you, I don't think you answered Carl's last email. So we have for next month, I'm sorry, I'm just a little here. We have for next month the land trust parking lot.
Issue, Cooper Square?
That's on the agenda, yeah.
Okay,
Do you want anything else on the agenda, or is that enough?
I don't have anything else to add at this point. If I have anything else, then I'll let you know by the end of
Well,
tomorrow.
the thing we had been talking about was that affordable housing, remember that that we spoke to the person from the state advocacy group? And he was willing to.
Yes, yes.
So at some point.
Oh,
we
why
can
don't
do
we
that.
ask them to see if they can come and present, right?
Okay.
That would be great, yeah. That would be great, so that we use the little extra time we have to, you know, enrich ourselves and learn more. All right, other than that, I think we're adjourned, and I'm gonna second. Oh, we gotta do roll call, you did it already?
No, I didn't do it, but it's the same.
That's why I didn't.
Damaris,
You know
Trevor
what I
last
just
year from
remembered?
background.
Damaris present, John Fett.
Excuse me, you know what I just remembered? That Stephen Alster had on some of those, do present not voting.
We did that.
Oh, you did
You
do
did,
present not
yeah, we
voting
did, on the show.
on the straw poll. So that needs to be recorded,
Do you guys know which ones, or?
Yeah, the one on,
The second item, I think.
They had two present not voting. So let me tell
So
you guys.
just the second item?
It's, yeah, it's for your benefit.
yeah.
I had people come on, because Mary, they want to see if Mary voted on one of her housing.
You mean the first,
What?
you mean the
We're
first?
still,
Mary's
we're still on Zoom.
Okay, fine, it's okay, I'm just saying, it's, you know, it's professional.
Are we done?
Thank you, George, Connor, thank you,
Roll
everyone.
call the same, I'm gonna mark it the same.
Oh, we'll do roll call the same?
Do the roll call, please.
Damaris said yes, John Fett said present, Ariadna,
Present.
present, Alistair.
Yes, present.
Herman, not present, Trevor,
Private.
Laura, no, Jaylene, no, Sandra, no, Steve, present, Megan, present, Alicia, not present.
We need a vote for adjourning the meeting? Nope, okay.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
Cheers.